Hello.
How you doing?
Somebody was a foreign country.
Okay, that's better. Somewhat better.
They didn't speak
Okay, that's better.
what you're saying. You said pretty good, pretty fine.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't know. No,
Okay, Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
No, they wouldn't.
Just go, start going.
Trustee Stewart?
Here.
Trustee Monahan?
Here.
Trustee Kermy?
Here.
Trustee Buckley?
Here.
Clerk Forba here. Treasurer Dorshevitz?
Here.
Supervisor Heising?
Here.
All present, we have a quorum.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance tonight will be led by Trustee Jennifer Buckley.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move for the approval of the agenda for Tuesday, July 25th, 2023.
Okay, motion is made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Monahan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, approval of the consent agenda. Any questions, comments?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
D3.
Yes.
Please take that off so we can talk about it.
No. You'll have to make a motion to that
Well,
effect.
no, remember when we started the
This
consent
is
agenda?
correspondence.
I know, but
This
the
is
consent
correspondence.
agenda, you said that you'd have no problem with anybody asking to take an item off. So I ask you to honor
So what
that.
are we going to do?
I want to ask you
gonna-
some questions and explain something to us, what you're
okay.
doing.
All right,
But-
we'll do that. But you're not pulling it off the agenda tonight.
No.
That's
I
going to
was-
require a vote.
Yeah, I guess that's okay.
Okay,
We can
all
talk
right.
about that, what
Okay,
you
fine.
agreed to last time.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. We'll need a roll call on this. Hearing no other questions.
I just have a issue with the minutes.
Oh, sure. Jerry?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, just a correction. It says trustee Buckley has interviewed 9 applications. I said last meeting, has received 9 or so applications and plans to conduct some interviews.
Okay, then.
Yeah, she did say that.
Okay, conduct. Okay, those, so corrected.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments? I'll need a motion and a second, and then we'll need a roll call vote.
I move for the approval of the agenda, the consent agenda for Tuesday, July 25th, 2023, minus the removal of the D3.
Okay, motion is made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Monahan. Please take the roll.
Supervisor Heising?
Yes.
Treasurer Dorshevitz?
Yes,
Clerk Forba, yes. Trustee Buckley?
Yes.
Trustee Kermy?
Yes.
Trustee Monahan?
Yes.
Trustee Stewart?
yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we're going to have a discussion on item D3.
Okay, I wanted to understand this. This is not changing the bylaws of Watua. It is just intended to protect from future supervisors voting for this? I'm trying to understand, because we're not affecting,
This does not affect the bylaws of Watua. What this does do is it would provide direction for a supervisor on his or her vote with respect to allowing another community, entity, or organization to enter the Watua system.
I
So
think
this
it's a
is-
good idea, Chuck.
right, but I'm just trying to understand the mechanism. So this is reducing the power of the supervisor, because right now you could vote on it at will.
Correct, without any notice or anything.
Right, so you're protecting for, if you have fall on your head and change your mind, or a new supervisor
Yeah.
comes in, that you would,
Yeah.
okay. Is there some concern now? Do we have the other communities? What is their position on
Well,
adding members?
I have not polled them. I know Supervisor Abbo in Northville currently says that he's not in favor of admitting to any other entities, but, that could change. He could be gone. I haven't asked anybody in Canton how they feel.
All right, so this is all
Because it's our
internal.
ordinance, it would not impact them, although they should probably do something similar in the future. It's my opinion.
This is all internal to Plymouth Township.
Correct.
All right. I thought you
Okay.
wanted us to trust you.
Well, I mean, if you want to trust me on my own with 2 other supervisors who he didn't vote for to admit other communities to a $250 million public asset. I mean, I don't think that's very,
All right, Bob,
Transparent.
you were going to add something?
No, I just said I think it's a really good idea because it's doing exactly what it should do, which a future supervisor could bring somebody into Watua, even though 6 members of the board were against it. The only suggestion I had was that rather than make it unanimous, make it a supermajority. But other than that, I think it's a really good idea. I wish the other communities would do it.
I concur.
All right, so
Okay.
we're going to explore this once we get some data from the attorney.
correct.
It sounds prudent. Could you elaborate on if I could see a draft in the next 45 days?
Well, draft ordinance this memo is from me to Kevin, so the draft ordinance would be, I would just like to see that personally, and then at some point, I can bring it to the board. So this is just the first step in that process. Okay, I don't know if we have to do
Yes, you do,
anything?
yeah.
We have to vote
We have to vote
to
on-
admit this now?
on
Or
the
can we just do that?
D3.
All right,
On
well,
D3.
let's just do that by, I'm assuming we can do that by acclamation. So
Yeah,
all those
exactly.
in favor of admitting item D3, which is under correspondence, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, great, thank you. All right, next up is public comment, limited to 3 minutes. There are no votes happening tonight on horse tracks, just to let everybody know. But we are going to, the agenda's been posted and is at the front of the back of the room there. We do ask that everyone keep their comments to 3 minutes. That's the rule, and what else? Just part of our bylaws as the township board is that you have to stick to the 3 minutes. You will have 3 minutes at the end of the meeting. You cannot share your time or pass your time off to another person. Madam Clerk over there, are we still going to be signing people in tonight? Okay, so before you speak, and this will not diminish from your time, we do ask that everybody sign a document, all we want is your name, we're not asking for addresses or any other data.
I think you should print so it's legible.
It's too late.
Too late, all right, you're fired.
Okay,
So I'm not here to talk about the racetrack. I just have a
we just
question.
need your name, just for.
Oh, Stacy Romine, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Plymouth Township resident. One of the new business items is regarding the solar energy system resolution or the changing of an ordinance. I sent an email late asking a couple of questions about this. I've been out of town and didn't get a chance to look at this that carefully. My questions, I have a couple questions, if you might help me out. Regarding residential mounting of solar energy systems, are there any size limitations for like ground mounted in a
Well,
residential
Lauren to answer
area?
You want to do it, or Lauren?
Well, it's because I was there. We talked about one of the things that was not reflected properly in this was that for now, the planning commission thought it was appropriate to not permit ground mounted
Okay,
in residential
in residential,
areas.
okay, so that would come up later if we wanted to amend
Yeah, we
that
got to
maybe?
see how this is going to go.
I was curious in the residential
Yeah.
sector, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then I guess I just had a minor comment. It was section C, item 6, talking about if it ceases to function for more than 12 months, then there's a 90 days after the 12-month period to decommission it and get it removed. 12 months seems like a very, very long time, in my opinion, for something to be not working, and then another 3 months. That's 15 months, almost a year and a half, a year and a quarter to get something removed. So just a humble opinion. And then I did have a question before my 3 minutes are up. I was asking in my email about 2 readings required for the an ordinance to be passed, and I read in the information that the Planning Commission meeting was considered to be the first reading, and this would be considered the second. And to me, the Charter Township Act that's reflected in some of the board materials here talks about the township board being the 2 readings. So I was curious, and you had helpfully said that you might be able to answer that question, so I appreciate it.
Kevin, you want to handle that?
The township's zoning powers do not emanate from the Charter Township Act or Chapter 42 of Michigan compiled laws. The township's zoning powers originate from the Zoning Enabling Act.
Okay, and that requires 2 readings as well?
No, the Zoning Enabling Act sets forth a very specific process for amending a zoning ordinance.
Okay,
The processes are different for a text amendment, which this proposed solar ordinance is, than from a rezoning. The notice requirements are more stringent from a rezoning requirement than they are for a text requirement.
I'm just curious how this differs from, there's something else that we were doing with the emergency powers that requires 2 readings at the township board as an ordinance amendment, and how this differs from that.
Yeah.
And you refer to 2 readings for this, that's,
The township's
Curious.
police powers, which is everything but the zoning ordinance, are derived from Chapter 42, which I
Okay.
saw you attached. That's the Charter Township Act. However, the township's zoning powers originate not from the Charter Township Act, but from the Zoning Enabling Act. So we're not going to follow the processes that are set forth in Chapter 42. We're going to follow the processes that are set forth in Chapter 125.
okay, and that does talk about 2 readings, and
Yes.
and what entities are required for the 2 readings in that?
What's required for that is there has to be 15 days notice by publication, at least
Okay.
15 days, before the planning commission
Okay.
makes its first recommendation.
Thank you.
And that would be
Okay.
analogous to the first reading by the Township Board of a Police Powers Ordinance.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Okay,
very much.
thanks. Laura, do you have anything to add at this point? Okay. Any other questions by the board?
We're going to talk about this more when we come to
We'll
the
get to
item.
it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Could I
We
just
haven't
ask this
gotten there
while
yet.
we're on the subject?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so when you're talking about the ground installation,
Can we deal with
Hold
that?
on.
you want to do
hold
with
on.
it later?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you want to talk about, what are you talking, is it germane to the solar ordinance?
It is.
but-
Yeah,
Well, we'll
we
wait.
can
We
talk
can
about
wait
it.
on that.
Okay.
We can wait
All
on
right.
that. Okay. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is David Hart. I'm a
Could you
Pl-
please sign in to, just your
I
name?
already did.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. My name is David Hart. I'm a Plymouth Township resident, and I've only newly become interested in this topic as it was on my radar generally, but then I've only really honed in on the issues very recently. And I came to the last meeting not knowing anybody here, not having too strong of a position. I'll be candid, I was slightly against it, mostly on the grounds that I was recently, well, it's not that recent, 2012, 2013, shopping for homes in Plymouth Township, and I could definitively say that if there was a horse track in the area where we were looking, I would have looked elsewhere. And I've surveyed my neighbors just through conversation, and I can't find somebody who feels otherwise. There's a strong sentiment in my community in Plymouth Township that people generally don't want this. And I think if you were to have clairvoyance or to actually go ask and take a survey of our community, I think it'd be overwhelming, and I think you might already know that most people would not be in favor of a horse track coming into our community. Different people will have different reasons for that, but I think that would be overwhelming, and that's certainly confirmed by my conversations. So that's where I stand on it. I want to share with you just a short excerpt from a Detroit Free Press article that was given to me about it's titled, How Wayne County Lost Millions on Horse Track in Huron Township. Wayne County has cut its losses on a losing bet it placed more than a decade ago on a horse track in Huron Township. Wayne County officials quickly jumped on board. In early 2008, the county issued $19 million in bonds to build roads on the property and another $14 million to install sewer lines, which to me sounds very analogous to the improvements that are going to be required on 5 Mile to support the horse track in question. The project's critics immediately raised doubts about its viability, just as many critics have raised doubts on the viability of this track in Plymouth Township. Now, the former editor, Ray Pollock of Thoroughbred Times, told the Free Press at the time I don't want to say that only a fool would do it, but only a gambler would start up a horse track today without some additional form of gambling. I quipped at the last meeting when I got up here and impromptu said, it sounds like this is a gamble. Right, so I chuckled as I read this, because indeed it does sound like a gamble to me. I looked into some other articles, and Mr. Heisey, I saw that you have made representations to the public that there is going to be no other form of gambling, gave assurances that this is an arcane form of gambling. So my question that I'd like you to answer is, what makes the proponents of this sitting here tonight on the board think that this would be any more successful than Huron or any of the long list of failed tracks across Michigan? And what will keep us, the taxpayers, from being stuck with a big bill that won't be subsidized by a successful, viable racetrack?
Okay, thank you.
What date,
I appreciate
and
your answer.
what date and publication was that in?
This is it appears to be a 2019
Okay.
Got a copy of it.
Yeah.
Free press?
Free Press, December 19, 2019.
All right, thank you.
Author John Wisely.
Okay, thank you.
If
Yeah, but we've got other folks. I gotta give everybody else a chance here. Yes.
He has been drinking heavily.
None of my
I
business.
witnessed it at 6:30.
Sir, if you would like to comment, this would be your opportunity. I haven't started the clock yet.
Yes, sir, I requested additional time due to the fact that I'm a leg and I protect y'all. I protect you against pedophiles, rapists, and murderers. I've been involved with 3 escapes. I was on the unit riot extraction team. I was a shift safety officer in addition to my correctional officer duties. Additionally, my father is an attorney, first starting as JAG Army and has been as high as DC Appeals. Of course, first being the U.S. Supreme Court. And I have many grievances. I requested extra time due to my traumatic brain injury. I was 1% away, I would assume, from dying in a riot, protecting y'all. But out of sight, out of mind. You don't care about me. Because I'm an attorney's son, I have 5 years law enforcement in the state of Texas. If I wanted to work in that silly unit, I could escort inmates to the Ivy Death Chamber in Texas. As my saying is, green is golden. You have green, you will be respected. But if you're disabled and your agency throws you to the wolves, but who I'm doing for representative at this time, I wish I could get back a disability Texas law enforcement pension pay. The officers don't like it when I question the government in front of forefathers. You said we retaliate against question the government. For example, I asked for a criminal complaint form today and was refused. They refused to give me a criminal complaint form, which is against federal, state, constitutional rights. Additionally, October 8th of last year, an officer used excessive force against me because they didn't like that I know more about use of force and law. He was causing me extreme pain.
So, Mr. Holgate, your 3 minutes is up, but given your disability and our past practice, I will give you another 3 minutes, given your unique condition. Do you understand that?
All I know is neglected duty. They did an investigation. That officer's gone. They, per Michigan law, are supposed to send their investigation to the prosecutor's office. Me being a government employee, I know how it goes down. They told him to resign and yield disciplinary termination, of which were made public record. So he quietly disappeared. He's probably at a new police agency, uh, breaking other people's constitution and due process rights. And they say, oh, don't defund the police. I say, Plymouth Township Police does not have an internal affairs department, nor like most cities do they have a police oversight committee who are civilians with expertise. If you're going to place money and Plymouth Township Police Department, they should replace those two entities. And numerous people can be removed because they failed to get the information to the prosecutor. So they are hiding under cover of law and office. I requested the investigation results, and I was refused. Moreover, I've been objected to libel and slander because I questioned the Plymouth Township Police Department and cited case law. So they have retaliated against me. Such as I was in the hospital suffering from a MRSA infection in my hand, and I'd gone there twice. The first time, they didn't require me to wear a gown. The second time, they were asking me to wear a gown.
Hey,
It
Todd,
was on my hand.
Todd, your time has expired, and I would invite you to, if you want to have a seat and watch the rest of our meeting here, we'll give you a chance to speak later on as well, okay?
I simply request that a investigation
Okay,
be
Okay.
taking place.
Okay, well, why don't we talk that over? I know Chief Nytel is here, and I'm sure he would be happy to meet with you out in the hallway to talk about this some more, okay?
I asked the chief for a criminal complaint form,
Okay.
and he refused to give it to me.
Okay, well, why don't you guys have that discussion out in the hall some more and see if we can come to some resolution. We do have another person who would like to come forward now and speak.
Let's start that clock. My name is Dale Bernhardt. Before the meeting, I gave you all a handout, and that handout's going to mirror what I talk about this afternoon. Page 1 and 2, yes, that is correct, thank you. It says gambling is addictive. 18-year-olds can gamble at this racetrack facility. Obviously, I'm against the racetrack. Gambling increases risk of suicide, depression, and criminal activity. Did we all know that? Have you read up on gambling? Mr. Heisey dismissed Northville Downs gambling as primitive. Well, so is craps, but still gambling, and it takes your money and it gives to the rich. We all have probably kids and grandkids. Is this where we want our kids and grandkids to reside when they're 18 years old? And they come to you and say, I'm out of money. I've been gambling. We just gave our money, I believe, to the township for growth works, and we gave them some recognition. My thought is, with the gambling, if we do approve this, that place is going to be overwhelmed. If you pass the gambling facility, we will be responsible for ruined lives and families. We'll be culpable. Handout page 3 and 4 is the Eagle Report. The Eagle Report is an environmental report about the Arbor Hills landfill, which is Salem dump. Have any of you read anything about the landfill? You know, Eagle and the Michigan Attorney General's office filed a lawsuit against the landfill recently. Did you know that the landfill was cited for leaking outside of the landfill in the surrounding area? It's not contained in the landfill area, it's outside of it. Did you know the landfill is required to perform additional environmental investigation activities surrounding that release area? Parcel 11, which is the racetrack site, is contaminated from the dump, not just DeHoco. How do you clean that up? It's continuing. It's continuing leakage. Do you want your kids playing at that outdoor activity at this site? Why are we doing this investigation? My thought that the board should be doing this investigation. The next is the newspaper clippings from the failed Pinnacle track by Metro Airport. Mr. Heisey, I'm going to get a little personal here, excuse me. Did you know Mr. Heisey represented Wayne County on all matters impacting water sewer for 2003-2009 during the Pinnacle construction? Did you know he was involved and had full knowledge on that project that cost Wayne County $35 million and lost the county millions? Did you know it was also built on a brownfield site? Did you know Huron Township became responsible for many of Pinnacle's financial liabilities for 30 years to end 2033? Did you know I discussed personally with Huron Township administrators to understand what they called a nightmare? Did you ever think to contact them yourselves? It shouldn't have been my job to do this. Did you know the horse racing insiders told Wayne County it couldn't survive without slots because it's a dying business? Did you know Huron Township only got 1 year of breakage fees or revenue sharing? Why did I have to investigate this?
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up. You're over 3 minutes.
I'll do it real quick, okay?
Thanks.
Mr. Heisey, again, I'm going to be a little personal here. You say that we always come up with the same subjects. How many subjects do you need us to come up with?
Okay.
Okay, we have 15 if you would like to hear those.
I'd ask you to wrap it up, so.
So you don't want to hear that.
We're not here to argue tonight. We have your information.
Well, I'm not
We've
here
heard
to
you, so
argue either.
that
I'm
sounds pretty
here to
argumentative,
point
so.
facts out.
We've got other folks who would like to speak. Thanks. Okay.
My name is Margaret Bechtel, and I live on the corner of North Territorial and Beck in the Rolling Oaks.
Could you speak,
sorry,
could you speak up?
Get that closer to your face. Yeah, hold it up, you can hold it up.
Yeah,
My name is Margaret Bechtel, and I live on the corner of North Territorial and Beck in the Rolling Oaks subdivision. I would like to speak on the horrendous cruelties that racehorses are subjected to. First of all, they are all heavily drugged, which in itself, in many cases, leads to catastrophic injuries and even death. And personally, with everybody cheating, I really don't see what kind of a sport this is. And it gets much worse. When horses used in harness racing stop being profitable, they're sent to slaughter. This means being shipped in a truck for a journey of over 24 hours at a time without being given food, water, or rest. They are often seriously injured or killed just in transit. And horses being skittish by nature makes them very difficult to pre-stun. So horses often endure repeated blows and sometimes remain conscious during dismemberment. There must be other alternatives that we as humans can entertain ourselves without inflicting this hideous, gruesome treatment on these gentle beings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Sue Conavolive, and thank you very much for letting me speak tonight. I totally agree with Margaret. I love horses, and I think there's a lot of cruelty that we've seen in the last year with the Kentucky Derby and everything about how horses are treated. But anyway, my husband and I have concerns about the proposed racetrack on 5 Mile. Just out of curiosity, has any resident from Plymouth Township come to the trustees and requested a racetrack for Plymouth Township? Anybody? As a 38-year-old resident of this fabulous community, I know that we never in our wildest dreams thought that a racetrack would be considered near our home. We did not move here to go gambling. Plymouth Township and the city are not about gambling. We are a small community that provides great life, and that is why people choose to live here. When people go to a gambling facility, they are really hoping to make money. That is the intention. I feel that our trustees are gambling with our community's reputation for the possible money that they can bring in from the racetrack. I spoke with a retired law enforcement officer, and he mentioned that he was looking into retiring at the west end of Plymouth Township. He said that he may go looking to Ann Arbor, as he said that when a gambling facility opens up near a highway, which is very close to Beck Road, crime will go way up, and the police department will be called, and the fire department will be called. That will take them away from the residents of the community that pay the taxes. The owner of Northville Downs may have made a windfall on his Northville property. It appears that he wants to make another windfall in our township. Why Plymouth? This leads me to the conclusion that I have a lot of questions that I would like answered. I am sure there are many residents that are not even aware that this is going into an area that has no updated roadway, is usually clogged up by garbage trucks from Canada going to our local landfill. I also heard Northville Lumber is moving to 5 Mile, and there may be a charter school being built on Ridge Road. We live in Ridgewood Hills, so I have no doubt that traffic will be severely impacted. We are open to information, and we request that the trustees have a meeting for residents to address the proposal and also answer questions that concern people. Let's not sweep this under the rug. Let's get this out in the open because the people who live here and pay taxes deserve information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to thank Ms. Kalamalov for 33 years of dedicated teaching, growth and development of students in the Plymouth Canton District, and you were my daughter's middle school counselor.
Don't worry, I won't take away any of your time.
Oh, okay, great. All right, so my name is Dr. Jonathan Finkel. I'm a resident of Plymouth Township. I'm here to talk about the proposed race course or track, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of things that I could mention that have been mentioned already. You know, the predatory nature of gambling in general, to take from those less fortunate and enrich those already enriched. But I want to focus on a different aspect that is concerning me most as a father. I'm a father of 2 young girls. They both go to school in the Plymouth Canton School District, particularly Bird Elementary, and we've loved the experience that they've had. Now, what does this have to do with the racetrack, you might ask? Well, what I would say is that I think no one can deny that a racetrack that will serve alcohol, starting at around 12 a.m., at least or 12 p.m., from what I've been able to send, will have individuals drinking. You'll have individuals drinking at a higher rate than prior to the presence of a racetrack. Not only that, you will have individuals who will be losing money. I don't think it's a very far stretch to say that when people get upset, one thing they do is drink. They drink to excess. And that then puts them in the possible problems of entering our motorways. So, 12 o'clock comes around 3:30, 4 o'clock, when kids are being released from schools, and now we have an increased level of intoxicated drivers driving on our roads. All that being said, given the proponents of people here who have no desire for this track to be made, the fact that you are supposed to be representing us, the people, why is this such a wonderful thing to do? I really have yet to see the true benefit. We're talking about an industry that has failed multiple times in multiple other places. You obviously have quite a few people that are not excited about it happening, and yet we're being told it's going to happen.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
My name is Dorcas Smith. I am a 25-year resident of Plymouth Township. My first question to the board is, who decided that we should have a racetrack?
I'll be happy to answer some questions later on, but I don't want to
Okay,
cut
well,
into
then
your
my
time.
question is, why didn't you ask us? Why wasn't a referendum put out? Why didn't you ask the community? Why do I have to keep coming up? Why do I have to keep coming up and giving an opinion, the same opinion? We don't want this racetrack.
Understood.
We really don't want it. We don't want to spend the money. We don't want the gambling. We don't want a failed activity that injures horses. Yet you keep telling us it's going to happen. Why are you trying to destroy our beautiful community? It's really a problem. We're not being heard. And everybody that I talk to, just as others have spoken, have said they don't want it. We the people don't want it. I don't hear a board listening to we the people. Please reconsider this decision. We don't want a racetrack.
Good evening, I'm Shirley Westfall, and I am a volunteer at the Humane Society of Huron Valley. Humane Society of Huron Valley services our community, take care of our cats, our dogs, our lost critters, any kind of problems we have, any animals that we find and that need care. They have input into this racetrack idea as well. In February, when we had a notice that there would be a public hearing with the Planning Commission, the Humane Society took a look at this issue and put out in the community and in Ann Arbor, in the Washington area, an action alert. And they let the people know that there was going to be a public hearing and that there was a proposal for the racetrack at 5 Mile and back. They not only include a racetrack and grandstand, but more. We can read between the lines. This will cost taxpayers upwards of $25 million to build. Now, these are words from Michigan Humane Society of Huron Valley. While there is no doubt that there are many horse lovers involved in racing, the unfortunate truth is that most of these highly social animals are confined to stalls for 23 hours a day, and racing leads to injury and death for many. Hundreds are killed on the track due to broken limbs, cardiac failure, or pulmonary hemorrhaging. While thousands who survive their injuries are sent to slaughter, they must go through grueling exportation processes because horse meat for human consumption is illegal in the United States. Others live out their lives with permanent physical injuries and emotional scars. And the vast majority of foals, deemed unworthy, are killed before they even get on the racetrack. Do horses love to run? Of course they do. But racing is much different than running. From birth to death, the racehorses experience cruelty just for monetary gain, status, and entertainment of humans. Widespread corruption and cruelty have caused a notable decline in horse racing over the last decade. The proposal leads us in the wrong direction. We are asking everyone in this community to help prevent this cruelty from coming to Plymouth Township. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, my name is Dennis Picard. I am a precinct delegate for Plymouth Township District 10. And I was at the last meeting, and I came here not so much to form an opinion. I could see both sides to it. And I didn't have a leaning. But because I wasn't sure, I came here to listen to public opinion. I'm sure everybody here votes, but we don't just vote at the ballot box. When we reject a product because of the political nature one way or the other, we're placing a vote. Okay? When you show up to a meeting, you are placing a vote. And I'm sorry, the vote is near unanimous in this room. When I was here last week, I can remember one person who came out in opposition, or in favor of the racetrack. Okay? Count the votes, please.
Thank you.
Hello. Horse racing is...
What's your name?
Pardon me?
What's your name?
Joyce Janicki. Horse racing is a cruel and unnatural life for a horse. Yes, horses love to run. I love to run. However, the difference is that I can run when I choose and at a pace that I'm comfortable with, whereas race horses don't have this luxury. The horse racing industry is concerned with winning and making money Welfare of the horses is secondary. To make this point a little more clearly, I brought this with me. Here's the listing of the 242 racing thoroughbreds who have died so far this year while racing, in training, or in these dogs. We saw 7 horses die during this year's Kentucky Derby, and through the U.S. Jockey Club, 7,602 thoroughbreds died on the nation's racetracks from 2009 to 2022. These numbers should shock anyone with any sense of decency and humaneness. What else do we need to tell? What else do we need to tell us that something is very blatantly wrong with horse racing? We've been great at celebrating winners. Well, it's time we're cognizant of and also mourn the hundreds who died. You may say harness racing doesn't cause the number of on-track breakdowns that thoroughbred racing experiences, but let's look at the life of a racing standardbred. Racing standardbreds generally endure a much longer racing career, during which they suffer injuries to muscles, bones, nerves, all causing pain and distress. Harness racehorses are whipped and develop first visible welt, while the driver inflicting those scores rarely receives more than a slap on the wrist. This just happened at Northfield Downs on May 20th. Then there's the very frequent bleeding in the lungs. While trying quickly to keep up the pace, very often pressure builds and becomes so great in a horse's lungs that blood-carrying capillaries burst, causing the horse to bleed internally, and oftentimes blood comes right through the nose. Studies have found that causes of standardbred racehorse deaths relate to age, sex, intensity of workload, and workload volume. In other words, their deaths are a culmination of many factors over their long lives serving the horse racing industry. And keep in mind that after racing ends, racing standardbreds are often made to pull buggies used for transportation. And as somebody mentioned, would you like this list at all?
You can just leave that with our clerk here.
It's pretty grisly. It lists the names of all the horses,
Okay.
the way they died, their injuries, their locations, state by state.
Okay, thank you very much. Just leave that with us. All right, anybody else? Then Mr. Hoag.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
I think I already have that. Is that what you passed out last week? Yeah, I already have that. Oh, no, this is different.
Yeah, these.
My name is Ron Hoag. 40-year resident of Plymouth Township. So I was really surprised when I heard about the racetrack. The first public awareness that I can locate is mid-January, where Mr. Heisey was interviewed on the radio station. And I thought, gosh, how did this get this far this quickly?
Did you say radio station?
Mr. Stewart.
I saw him on TV.
Mr. Stewart.
I know you were going to rule.
Mr. Stewart, let him speak.
Yeah, that's why I get all kinds of emails saying, tell
Okay,
Heisey to let you talk.
Okay, okay. Okay.
Taking your time,
That
Ron.
time back.
I'll give you a few
Yeah, as
extra.
much time as you want.
I'll give you a few extra seconds. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sure. As much time as you want.
No, John, it's not your meeting.
So I thought I'd look at the MITC agenda and minutes, because in October of last year, the Carlo brothers executed the purchase of the property, parcel 11, southwest corner, 5 Mile and Ridge.
And looking at the agenda, now, let's keep in mind that MITC is a public body. A public body is governed in part by the Open Meetings Act. Open Meetings Act requires that minutes be produced within 8 business days following the meeting. Not approved minutes, minutes. And then approved minutes are to be published 5 working days, 5 business days after that. So unfortunately, you in the audience don't have this, but, so let's go back to October of 2022. We see there was a meeting, and we see there are minutes of the meeting for October 26, 2022. Let's turn to those minutes, and they are the minutes from October 25th, 2021. They're the minutes from the meeting the prior year. I would think during the MITC meeting in October, when the Carlo brothers bought the property, everyone would have been excited about that. There would be much written about it, much talk, patting each other on the back. But nobody could see it because the minutes were not included. Now, one might say, guys, that was an oversight, that was an accident. If that's the case, those minutes should be immediately available today, not tomorrow, so they can be prepped tomorrow, or the day after. They should be available today. The other point I would make is there were 4 meetings following that meeting, no minutes from any of them. So that's why the people of Plymouth Township, in part, are completely unaware of this issue. Mr. Icy, turn this bus around.
Good evening. My name is Judy Hart, and I'm a Plymouth Township resident. I live in Ridgewood West. Sorry about that. Sorry for everybody in the video and everything. I wanted to make sure, just as far as clarity goes, I as well spoke last week. I didn't plan on speaking last week, and I didn't know anybody.
Ma'am, could you have to address the board.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, board. Good evening, board.
It's okay. We feel left out.
I wanted to just be very.
Okay, just.
I wanted to be very clear that before last week, my husband and I did not know anyone in the group that opposed the racetrack. We have since spoken to our neighborhood, and I wanted to make sure that I communicated to the board that I spoke to a wide variety of community members in Ridgewood West. I spoke to neighbors who have older adult children who have already graduated. I spoke to neighbors who have 2, 3, and 4-year-old children who are going to be going to school. I spoke to neighbors who have children who are teenagers like myself, who, we are just recently allowing to go downtown to the city of Plymouth. And I've always felt what a great, I'll reiterate that I said last week, 13 years ago, we looked at, it was a safe community, it was very quiet, it was quaint, but it was close to downtown Plymouth, and we allow our 16 and our 13-year-old to go down there. As a parent, again this week, but also as an educator who has just recently come back to the career of teaching after 15 years of my kids growing up, I think about the parents who don't know that this racetrack is going to be going in with Ivywood going in just down the street on 5 Mile Road. I spoke to a couple parents who were very surprised to see that there was going to be a racetrack that served alcohol right near a K through possibly 12 school. And like I said last week, I think this seems like with all due respect, it seems like a very tone-deaf decision for this time period. One of the big things that we have right now is our home value. Everything else is so incredibly, well, they're expensive, but it's one of the positives of of this time period right now. We have our home values. And like I said last week, if I would have heard that there was a racetrack, I don't think that's going to be something that's listed by Mary and Mike Gladshaw if they're showing people homes. It doesn't seem like a positive to try to attract young families to the district, to our community, which would therefore affect our home values. I think it would affect the safety of allowing our children to go to downtown Plymouth or to other areas of the community. And I as well think that it also is, the reason it also is tone deaf is having gone back to teaching and knowing what I know about our community with mental health right now after COVID, putting that type of gambling facility that serves alcohol doesn't seem like a thought. It doesn't seem like the thoughts have been worked through for our community. I think we have very vulnerable people right now after COVID, and I just want to thank you for hearing my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Mary Ann Adams from Ridgewood Hills. I have been here before to talk about parcel 11. I do live right near this proposed development, and Ridge Road has been my path to avoid the nightmare on Beck Road. I'm going to revisit parcel 11 and specifically the state of the brownfield property because it has to be clearly understood by Plymouth Township residents and anyone else that may visit this development on what contamination existed and what remediation took place if needed. Since Northville Downs in Plymouth is intended to be a public venue with additional community benefits such as soccer fields, pickleball courts, and a walkway in order to meet the PUD, I am going to continue to emphasize how critical it is in making sure this property has been or will be evaluated for contamination and properly remediated if such contamination is present. And this is aside from the air quality issues and the leachate stemming from the landfill that we heard about earlier. Quick recap, Mr. Heisey. You said parcel 11 was contaminated and remediated. Then you deferred to the township's consultant, Harless, to clarify that parcel 11 was indeed not contaminated. From what I have become aware of, Michigan's Department of Environmental, Great Lakes, and Energy states that from the data they have, parcel 11 is indeed contaminated. Is this because they also received incorrect data from Harless? The same incorrect data that Harless included in their document entitled Parcel 13, Amendment Number 2, final dated April 26, 2023. If the state of Michigan is indeed basing their assessment of Parcel 11 on Harless data, why wouldn't Harless rectify this matter with the state as well instead of relying on public media to try and rectify the matter? So frankly, I don't trust any information that is currently available about Parcel 11. But because you want to bring in all kinds of people, children, and animals to this parcel, you need to get it right. Parcel 11 was not tested at the time of the baseline environment assessment back in 2018. But because you want to bring, in fact, it was only parcel 12 just north of the C&O Railroad that was tested. So I want to know, when is this testing going to be completed? Or when is a work plan for parcel 11 going to be submitted to Eagle for remedial investigation to occur? This is critical because of the community benefits package you are trying to pull together to fulfill the planned unit development. This community has no idea what you are trying to negotiate because you've been given sole power by the board to do this negotiation. If this community benefits package is in our best interest, which you think it is, you need to reveal the extent of this community benefits package. The community is upset about this development because of the lack of transparency with the public from the very get-go. I've also taken the time to review all the Plymouth Township brownfield agendas and minutes back to 2012 to the current time, and there is never one mention about Northville Downs purchasing this brownfield property.
I'm going to have to ask you just to wrap it up. I'll give you a few more seconds.
I'm done. Not even in 2022, when this property was sold by Hillside to the Carlo brothers. So get this one right on the contamination.
Thank you. Huh? He's not. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So my name is Eileen Coleman. I've been a lifetime resident of Plymouth Township, as you know, and I've spoken before. So I'm just going to reiterate a few things. First of all, there should have been a referendum. This is ridiculous.
45 degrees, swallow the mic.
What?
I've had professional training.
Okay, thank you, John.
So there should have been a referendum on this. This should have been put to the public. This is a character change for Plymouth Township. And the majority of the people, I would say 95%, do not want it. They don't want gambling. They don't want addiction. They see moral implications from this. This does not bring about human flourishing. It brings about addiction. Addiction, crime, alcoholism, poor use of land, poor jobs. There's no merit in this project, and you all know it. So I suggest between now and the time that you vote on this, that you take it to prayer. What is the moral decision here that you should be making for the people of Plymouth Township? Since you are people of faith, I can address you on faith.
Competitive environment.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Alice Rainville. I am a resident of Plymouth Township in Ridgewood Hills. I'm very concerned about the racetrack proposal. We've heard so many great arguments against it tonight. And I want to reiterate what I said last meeting, that gambling is a public health problem. It leads to other public health problems, just mentioned, alcoholism, crime, and mental health issues. These are so important for all of us and our families that live in this area. Mr. Heisey, you keep mentioning that you're in negotiations. Well, last meeting you mentioned that. So again, I want to ask you and plead with you, it's not too late to stop the negotiations. Negotiations are a back and forth, and we can pull out. So I don't know why you're not considering that as one of your options, because it is something you need to consider. So I urge you to stop the negotiations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Diane Belarus, and I just want to say I don't think members of this board are listening to the citizens that voted you into office. We do not need that racetrack. We do not want that racetrack. And you need to really start listening. Now, when you guys were trying to push through the park issue,
and built the theater in Plymouth, you had several meetings where you were informing the public of how great this would be for the community. You have done absolutely nothing to inform us why you think this would be so great. Why is that? You know, crickets, that's what we get when there's something. You guys meet behind closed doors, it's under the radar, and you already know what you want to do when you present it to the public. And it's just not the way our government should be run. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Ray Lally. I'm the guy that lives across the street from Bill in Trailwoods, Bill Carter, Mr. Carter. And when he came, during this last administration that we did a wholesale change on, for the most part, there's a few of you that are still here, they were doing the same thing to us. And we came aboard, and all of us got together, and Mr. Heisey was righted. You know how hard that was to get him elected? We worked our butts off getting him elected on this. And we're all celebrating at Papa Ronald's, right? Like you guys all got put in, remember? It was a good night. This is not what we want. This is very disappointing what you're doing on this bill. I retired from being for 30 years as a Michigan State manager, and we really don't need a casino in here. You guys did a field trip and gone over to Northfield Downs and seen what's there in the afternoon. Have you seen what's going on in there? It's ridiculous. I mean, it's not what we want here. This is not what we put you guys in office for. But I think you should take a field trip and go over there and look at what's going on there in the afternoons over there. I mean, you're not at the Wind, you're not at the Bellagio drinking champagne at the bar and at the pool. I mean, you know, if you want to do that, go downtown to the MGM, and they got their own problems. That was their number one account in the state. Greektown Casino was a huge liquor account. And let me tell you something, it's not pretty.
Okay.
So I'm testing. Am I doing it right?
Yes.
Thank you. Mary Pine, 45-year resident. The Plymouth Township website states people are priority. When people, residents, voters asked questions and expressed evidence-based opposition and plain emotion against the racetrack, they have been met appallingly with disrespect of lectures, threats, dust in the air arguments, a shell game presentation, and having the media used to deliver partial truths on a community-changing issue. The unacceptable behavior of the Supervisor Board and Planning Commission could have been precluded if they had simply followed the April 2023 Public Participation Plan on their own website. Items being violated: work collaboratively, engage in transparent communication, build trust and transparency, create a culture of open communication, accountability, and understanding. Follow a model of inform, consult, involve, collaborate, and most importantly, empower to place the final decision-making in the hands of the public. There are 2 pages of stakeholders. Nowhere are residents listed. I have been told that it was an oversight, a mistake made by not noticing something. Kurt Heisey is listed as a contributor. He does not notice the residents or view the residents as meaningful to a decision. Stakeholders is a gambling term and a business term. Kurt Heisey is gambling with the township community for the sake of a business which has to relocate. Why? We have no obligation to help this business. Kurt Heisey has an obligation to us. Ignoring citizens was evident on Wednesday's 7/19 at the Planning Commission meeting. Apparently, the board wants recommendations on solar panels. Northfield Down has stated the desire to apply for federal funds for solar panels. The resident wishes are ignored. Additionally, at the meeting's end, which is on YouTube, the Planning Commission discussed how to deal with citizen dissent and silence discussion as it was repetitive and apparently inconvenienced them. Just this June the 27th, Senate Bills 411 through 414 were introduced in the Michigan Senate's Natural Resources and Agriculture Committee,
announcing the state of Michigan's interest in gaming and horses, and how the funds acquired would be used to fund the equine industry. In them, FOIAs were not going to apply. We are not an agricultural community. We have no obligation to this committee. The state of Michigan is not Kentucky, which, by the way, is proposing laws to eliminate breakage fees for the hosting community. Due diligence has not been done. No racetrack in our community. We are not pawns. We do not want Plymouth Township to be synonymous with Northville Downs and gambling. The residents have been advising you to look out for your own reputations and that of our community by voting no on the racetrack. Change is inevitable, but you have the obligation to make responsible changes. Like it or not, there will be accountability for all of you later on. Change will be coming for you.
All right, thank you.
Wow, it's a tough act to follow. Good evening. My name is Marcy Becker, a long-term resident of Plymouth Township. This is my second time around. I moved here in '73, and again in 2020. I actually came from California to move back here to be with my children. I'm a homeowner, a taxpayer, a voter. And I'm going to read my notes because I don't want to go off script. Thank you for giving us your attention this evening. For the other evenings, we were here presenting facts and voicing our opinions. The issue of building a racetrack within the walls of our community is just such a shock to about the 500 or 600 folks that signed our petition to stop it before it gets started. Some we've spoken to believe that it's a done deal, and others think it won't happen because people don't have our best interests at heart. We all started asking why. Why would they do this to our community? So we inform and enlighten our community to the pitfalls of installing a racetrack in our backyards. We have a vast network on social media, emails, in-person meetings, as last evening, and we talk every day to these folks with concern and influence. After all, we live here because, guess what? It's a wonderful life. And if you cast a yes vote and put in the tracks, we become a Potterville. That's unacceptable to any of us. Look at this group. They're looking at you and watching and listening to everything you do for us. We are a strong group, intelligent, informed, who vote. And this is Plymouth, and it's worth fighting for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, guys. I'm Bill Klein, 45-year resident. The reason I wanted to talk to you about, is that effective organizations have a framework for decision making. This conversation started 6 months ago. 6 months ago, 90%, maybe more, of people in Plymouth Township didn't know about this. Now, there are massive numbers of people who know about it, and almost everybody. It's very difficult to find anyone who supports us. So, your current approach right now tends to be secretive, arrogant, smacks of ready, fire, aim the type of work problem, and ignores the residents. The board must acknowledge your primary duty as public servants, not politicians. Determining the direction Plymouth Township needs to be based on identifying problems, priorities, and choices before you push solutions. Ready, fire, aim. Some of the thoughts on the process, but first things first, I'm giving this to you perspective, is that you need to identify all the key underlying processes for the township: public safety, municipal services, efficient operations, property values, taxes. There's much I have. You need to establish key metrics for the underlying processes to maintain community ambience and character. You need to identify key tools for addressing the underlying processes and related metrics. 5-year task is great. Benchmarks from other municipalities, zoning, stuff where you have broad-based control. You need to prioritize initiatives for township focus. I don't have a clue as to what your guys' focus is, to be perfectly honest. You need to contact them. You need to identify alternatives for pursuit of those initiatives. You need to respectfully obtain broad-based resident feedback for any decisions. That's why these guys are here. They're They're trying to be responsible township residents. You need to communicate the process widely. The township residents, I should be able to go out and have 90% of the people say, oh, I don't know about it. You know, that's not good. And only then should you acknowledge and act on that feedback. And we've been doing this for 6 months, and we haven't made progress, other than to have a much larger group of people come and say, hey guys, what's going on? So what's going on? And then you need to honor whatever process you come up with in serving the residents of Plymouth Township. Failure to act mindfully frequently results in working on the wrong problems for the wrong people. These are the right people. And should not, and ultimately will not, I think it's going to be sooner rather than later, be tolerated by the township residents. I mean, there's a lot of people who know about this now, and it's very difficult to find anyone who thinks it's a good idea. You guys don't have one constituent. You don't have most citizens. You don't have a few constituents. You have 28,000 constituents. And they're increasingly aware of what you're doing. You need to think about that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item F1. This is the text amendment to zoning ordinance. Okay, well,
Go ahead.
that's okay. Didn't see you in the back there.
Guy Guzmandi.
Can you sign your name in?
And here's what, there's a theme here that we have people who've come to Plymouth. I've come from Plymouth from another town. Why? It's the community. It's the people. But here's what you all are missing. If I could have everyone's attention up there, please. Everyone's attention, because all right, this is what is going on.
She needs to hear it.
Mr. Kermey, let's not attack our employees here. Come on.
No, she's a contractor.
Here's what we're missing. We've heard some terrific arguments about all that is wrong with the decision. What we don't see is that, if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be a gambling consortium, racetrack, amongst what? Playgrounds, and there are 2 elementary schools there right in proximity. We have, Michigan now currently has the dubious distinction, and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, all right? We are ranked number 10 in the state for human trafficking, number 10.
That's Plymouth?
This, Michigan.
Oh, Michigan.
Michigan. Now, prior to 2019, it was Laurel Park that was normally considered a high-interest area simply because it was close proximity to an expressway. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to drop a gambling consortium between these areas. We have over 340,000 abductees who are then trafficked. If you look at the numbers, all right, 200,000 of those, 200,000 of them are from the age of 11 to 18. 80% of the abducted people are females of that age. 200,000 of those. 178,000 are males in that age group. Now, you're going to put a gambling, you're going to put horse racing in proximity, and all the drinking and all the issues. And the doctor made a very good point of who's going to be drinking and driving around there. But more importantly, you look at the abducted children that are being trafficked through Michigan. Michigan was number 1 prior to COVID, number 1. We've dropped a couple of notches. So now we want to give these people, whatever you want to call them, demographic, social graphic structures that they are, and give them the opportunity to grab our children. We came here, my kids are older. These people here and some of the younger people have young children. I want you to think about that. Look in your soul, whatever your moral compass is right now, you better figure it out, because whatever your maker, whatever God you believe in or don't believe in, at the end of the day, if you have one child that is missing after this debacle, it will be on your heads. If these numbers are half truth, and correct me if I'm wrong, these numbers are increasing. If you haven't seen the sound of freedom, you need to go see it.
Thank you. Okay.
My name is Ann Kozol, and I am a 23-year resident of Ridgewood Hills in Plymouth Township. And after listening to everybody, many well-researched points have been brought to the board's attention tonight and over the last several months. The number of concerns, when you hear them all together at one time, make the racetrack a powerful and hard no. First, the project was snuck into our community as a PUD on land zoned by the MITC for high tech. No meeting minutes published by the MITC kept this project a secret. Fishback conducting the traffic study is a direct conflict of interest because they were hired by the racetrack. Traffic study data points are only from Northville in 2020 and MDOT 2017, but zero direct data points from the Plymouth Township are included in the traffic study. It is a biased, outdated, inaccurate, irrelevant traffic study. Even Myers confirmed traffic problems in that area. Documented contamination of surrounding properties and leaching from the Arbor Hills landfill. History of improper manure removal at Northville Downs, and yet racetrack stalls will hold 90 horses. Discrepancies of contamination at parcel 11 by the Michigan Environmental Great Lakes and Energy. Environmental due diligence is absolutely necessary before constituent families could safely use this land. The environmental problems will soon become legal and financial problems. Previously failed racetracks at Middlebelt, Hazel Park, Windsor, and especially Huron Township, where Wayne County lost $36 million when it failed within a year. Who will pay for this one when it fails? Infrastructure costs $25 million plus additional ongoing emergency services will be needed. No tax revenue for the township for 10 years. Over 100 annual police calls from Northville Downs. Breeding ground for human trafficking due to kids on property, proximity to borders and highways, and the influx of out-of-towners. Gambling, betting, and alcohol now introduced to our already vulnerable township children and families. Alcohol will be served from 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. every weekday within 2 miles of 3 K-8 schools during school pickup, recess, kids walking home, and the racetrack parking lot full of kids who just want to play soccer. All in contact with drivers potentially under the influence of alcohol purchased at this racetrack. Toss in animal cruelty, where over 2,000 horses are put down each year. It's not safe for animals or humans, and especially not our children. Your constituents have been bringing these issues to your attention for the last several months, and you have provided neither answers to our questions nor reliable data to support this project. Where is the transparency? In the land purchase? In the zoning switcheroo? Where is the due diligence? In the traffic study? In the contamination issues? Where is the fiscal responsibility? In the millions of dollars required for infrastructure and emergency services, as well as millions lost? Where is the critical thinking? Pick an issue. Where is your moral compass regarding multiple concerns relating to the safety of Plymouth Township children? Would a prudent steward of the community make an investment where there is a lack of transparency, conflict of interest, environmental safety, public and health issues, and multiple financial liabilities? No way. Using other people's money
even less likely. If you're so confident that the community wants this project, let us vote on it and do your due diligence before you vote on
If we're gonna move on, okay. All right, can I move on to item F1? Text amendment to zoning ordinance number 99 for the establishment of solar energy systems. Laura Hall, why don't you start us off?
Thank you, trustees. Supervisor Heisey. Could I take over the screen for our presentation?
Can she take over the screen?
Yeah, I think we're west. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Thank you, trustee Dershowitz. Okay. Great, thank you. Before diving into the ordinance, I'd like to give a little bit of background. This really started with the Township's Environmental Leadership Commission, the ELC, almost a year ago. And a great deal of work did go into researching and developing this ordinance by the ELC. It was also discussed at several of the ELC's meetings, which are public and published online. And it would be remiss to not congratulate and thank Eric Geerlings, who is a civil engineer and a member of the Environmental Leadership Commission, for all his expertise on this matter. And while this may be a new conversation for Plymouth Township, we are coming in late to the conversation in terms of solar ordinances at the local municipal level. Many communities across Michigan have already adopted solar ordinances. So this would include Clinton Township, Salem Township, Dexter Township, Putnam Township, Tecumseh, the city of Plymouth, our neighbor, Dearborn, Garden City, Livonia, and Rochester Hills, and these are just to name a few. The state of Michigan's Health Climate Plan and Initiative also encourages municipalities to adopt solar ordinances since at least 2019. And in 2021, a very comprehensive study and joint effort by the University of Michigan and the MSU Extension was published. This is the Planning and Zoning Solar Energy Guide for Michigan local governments, and a link to that was included in your packet, and that's considered the guidebook for Michigan communities. So this is all just to say that this topic has been well researched and documented in terms of solar ordinances, and a lot of efforts went into preparing what is before you this evening. So one of the questions is, why would we look to adopt a solar ordinance? There's a couple key points. The first is that the price of electricity produced by solar power without subsidies has dropped significantly since 2010, so over the last decade. Solar can now produce electricity at a lower cost than both coal and nuclear power. The solar industry is also a job creator, not only today, but projected in the future. The township has worse air quality than most of the state of Michigan. Wayne County is one of 8 in the state that does not meet the EPA clean air standards for ozone. Solar, of course, is a cleaner form of energy. And utility companies such as Consumers Energy and DTE are moving in that direction. In fact, the ELC had Consumers Energy come and speak and present at one of their public meetings and answer questions about their program and initiatives. From an economic perspective, Southeast Michigan also wants to maintain its leadership role in mobility, and this is one way to enhance that effort. Michigan is projected to be one of the top 3 states when it comes to battery manufacturing plant capacity by 2030, and that is aligned with the MITC goals to attract those companies who want solar. Lastly, I'd like to note that the township is not equipped in terms of the zoning ordinance to really review solar energy system types. The building department does review these currently, and they have been, namely for rooftop residential solar. But when we start talking about larger solar developments with industrial users, we don't have anything in the ordinance today. And so this is an important component to provide for. The intent of this solar ordinance is to encourage site design environmentally by preserving woodlands and wetlands in place, and to maximize the use of, let's say, a parking lot for an industrial user that's already, of course, right impervious surface, by adding solar to their carports or to the rooftop of their buildings. To provide for a renewable, abundant, non-polluting, quiet, and local energy resource, and to protect property owners' rights to save money on electricity in all zoning districts. So the intent is to provide for reasonable regulations on solar ordinances, and in many cases treat them like accessory structures and encourage them. These are a couple images of what solar energy systems look like. And in many cases, I'm sure you have seen these across the township. This is a residential solar rooftop mount. This is an example of a residential scale ground array. And while the background, of course, is different and likely not found in Plymouth Township, the scale of this ground array is similar to what you would see in a residential backyard if they were allowed as an accessory structure. This is another example, although a bit taller, of an example of what could be allowed in a residential district.
That's on the ground?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what I want to know. Is it? Okay.
Yes, this is an example of a ground mount. These are some additional examples of how they can be integrated into residential areas on top of pergolas or other accessory structures that might already be in the backyard, whether they're attached to the home or separate. This is an example of a larger industrial scale facility that might have rooftop solar arrays. And then, as I mentioned earlier, carports at a commercial, multifamily, or industrial development. This is something that is becoming increasingly popular, and we have received requests for this in the planning department for companies to install. This is a breakdown of the chart in the draft ordinance that would allow the different solar energy systems by unit type. So as I mentioned, there's the accessory, which is either roof mounted, which is currently in place today. If it's building integrated, that means it's actually used in the facade materials, or ground mounted. And the recommendation in our initial draft was to allow in all zoning districts and to allow that as administrative. The Planning Commission has discussed this and has recommended that the ground mounted be excluded from this process, which I think warrants some further discussion tonight.
I was going to say, what does that mean, excluded?
So that would not allow these types of solar arrays to be within the backyard.
Is that the most common use, though, for it? I mean, would most homeowners want to put that type of mount in?
No, it just takes one. There was concern on the planning commission, most are gonna be roof mounted.
Okay.
But there was just concern because, we're opening the barn for the horses to get out.
Oh, not again.
Oh, God. Oh,
Too
God.
soon, too soon.
Rewind that tape, would you?
Okay, I have a question. So if you start allowing these on roofs and stuff, or we start regulating them, is there gonna be any requirement that the people make sure that these elements are insured in their homeowners association, in their insurance? Because they can get damaged and people a hailstorm could not only damage
You can't require somebody to have insurance.
I was asking that. I was asking the question.
I know you are, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, but
yeah.
I don't know how you would require somebody to have insurance.
Well,
It's up to the mortgage company.
That's a mortgage company issue.
Yeah.
Between them and their carrier.
Yeah.
My concern is that you see a hailstorm and you get this destroyed and the insurance company says, well, I'm sorry, that's not covered. You know, and then you've got
bad
these
for
sitting
you.
on the, well, I understand that. I'm just talking about how it's going to look.
So I want to clarify, we're not going to have any ground-mounted panels anywhere, Laura?
Well, that is what the planning commission has recommended that is adjusted in this zoning code.
No, that was residential properties only.
Residential properties, yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
From a planning perspective, and as I mentioned at the beginning, all of the resources that the state of Michigan has put out and the University of Michigan, I cannot professionally recommend that we would exclude ground-mounted. I would recommend that if you were leery of ground-mounted in residential districts, to specify a more difficult process for that property owner to go through and some additional standards, but to not exclude it entirely.
I kind of this sort of reminds me of back in the 80s and 90s when satellite dishes were prevalent. And we had, I know when I was in the city, we had big fights with residents over the ground-mounted or roof-mounted satellite dishes. I mean, Laura, you've done a wonderful job on this, as always, but I think right now we should just take it in chunks, and I just don't think we have the appetite for the ground-mounted for residential. I think we should be more flexible when it comes to commercial. It may not fit all sizes, but I know we have parcels where we have land that cannot be developed that's on a commercial site because of wetland issues or parking or something like that. I mean, I can see a large parking lot where you would want ground mounted. It could serve as the roof for the parking structure. We see that at MSU right now and other places.
Yeah.
So for commercial, I think we should be open to it. Residential, I'm a little leery.
Let me, if I may, for just 1 second, show you something. Because this came up in the planning commission, and I'd never heard of it before, and I thought it was pretty interesting. These solar panels now, they look like shingles. They're solar shingles.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have seen this, I've never have, but you can't hardly tell that they're even there.
Yeah, it's just the progression of the development
Yes.
as the technology moves forward.
And that's residential, and that's
residential.
I don't have a problem with roof mounted,
Yeah, so I had not heard of them, and we talked about it in the planning commission, it was pretty cool.
Could you answer why a resident would want the ground mounted over the rooftop?
It may just work that the position, based on their roof configuration, in their yard, may be more unobstructed, that it may be more advantageous, they would receive more sun by having the ground mount as opposed to their roof, right? It depends which way your house is facing and how many gables you have. That would maximize your surface area.
You might have to cut down fewer trees, potentially. Just depends. I listened to some of the planning commission where they talked about this last week. The planning commission was divided on whether to bring this to the township board so quickly. And the planning consultant said the board wants to approve it. My recommendation is there's a lot of details on this. We have two parts. We have industrial, business, and commercial, and then we have residential. I recommend that we postpone this and send it back to the planning commission to do more analysis. If we haven't had it now.
Analysis of what?
Pardon?
Analysis of
Well,
what?
I listened to the planning commission, and there were at least 3 people that said that they wanted to do more on it. And I can see by the discussion here today that everything isn't totally clear. In fact, I think some people are confused on what we're going to do I came away from what it said in the planning commission that we were going to hold back on residential and only do commercial today.
It was, it was residential, ground mounted as we talked about. I don't know if you send it back to the planning commission, if there would be anything more that the planning commission would do, because this is really just codifying what's going on out there anyway. And you have an HOA would take priority because that's a contract. All this is doing is putting into code practices that are out there anyway, right, Laura?
It is. It's protecting the township as well because it has provisions about the permitting process, maintenance, decommissioning, land clearing, removal, maximum height on industrial facilities, and we have.
It hasn't been thought out with every detail. Why can't you go through it again so you have commercial and residential, every detail? I don't think
anything would be
Hear about the ground mount, we are confused on it. We're not sure what we want to do. Laura, you're recommending ground mount as a yes. Some people up here say, well, maybe we shouldn't do ground mount in residential. So we haven't worked it all out.
That's what they recommend.
That's what they recommend. She said she would prefer it, but it's not in this.
So let's work out every detail before you bring the finished product here.
Laura, why would you prefer that the ground mounted be included?
It's a best practice in the industry to allow private property owners more options to have solar energy production. If it's treated the same way as an accessory structure, it's really no different than being in your yard than a shed. It's not gonna cover more of your, backyard area. It still has to adhere to setbacks, height restrictions. So you treat it like an accessory structure. I would recommend that.
Even if it's on posts?
Yes, that's ground mounted. I would recommend that if the commission is unsure about the ground mounted, to just remove it from the residential at this point, to pass the ordinance since there's consensus on the other items, and then to potentially revisit the ground mounted in the future.
Okay, any other questions for Laura? Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance. Once I turn my microphone on. Is there a motion? Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
I move to adopt resolution 2023-07-25-55, authorizing the adoption of the text amendment to the zoning ordinance number 99, establishing section 28.62, solar energy system, SES, and amending article 36, definition as recommended by the planning commission.
Okay, motion is made by Clerk Vorva. Is there a second? All right. Who seconded?
I did.
Okay, seconded by Treasurer Dorshevitz. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Trustee Kermy.
No.
Trustee Buckley.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Treasurer Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Trustee Monahan.
No.
Supervisor Heisel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Next up is item F2. This is fiscal year 2023 budget adjustments and fiscal year 2022 carry forwards. Deputy Finance Director Carol Roshan is here and is available if you have any questions. Otherwise, it seems to be fairly self-explanatory.
Wait a minute. Let's go through at least the dot points.
Carol, you're going to have to come up for that.
This is money.
Our regular,
You gotta speak real loud.
we have our regular quarterly budget amendments. We have revenue that is extra interest, that we have earned more interest than we anticipated. when we
That's what the
put
first
budget
one is, the
together.
$400,800 is interest income that was,
Yes.
that you're taking.
There's a report toward the back, the fiscal year 2023 budget appropriations for second quarter. So it lists everything by account number in detail. So we have, we're recognizing the funding sources for the interest income for each of the funds. And then we have expenditures that I have listed by line. Do you want me to go through each line, or do you have questions on separate lines?
So if we go to the second dot point, brownfield development, that revenue is interest income, 41,000?
Yep.
Okay. The next one Same thing, for all of these, the income. Because the exact numbers, I'd have to add them up
Yeah,
from the page.
all of the income is interest, so all the revenues is interest income. So there isn't any other revenue in there but the interest.
Okay. There's one item on the solid waste. I think we had a unanticipated 135 to 150,000 to pick up the brush from the two storms.
139,000, yeah, that's from that last storm we
Right.
had, from all of the ice, yes.
Are we going to have to change the rate for trash pickup this year?
No.
There's enough surplus to absorb this?
Yes.
Unanticipated, okay.
Okay, any other questions for Carol? Hearing none, I move that the Plymouth Township Board of Trustees adopt the attached resolution 2023-07-28-56, authorizing various fiscal year 2023 budget amendments and fiscal year 2022 carry forwards to the accounts as outlined and attached. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Monahan. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Treasurer Dorchevitz.
Yes.
Trustee Monahan.
Yes.
Trustee Buckley.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Clerk Forbett, yes.
Okay, next up is item F3. This is 2023-24 water and sewer rates. Is Pat Felrath here? If not, I will
He was
text
here
him.
earlier.
I'll text him. I'll get him in here. Okay, Bob, we'll get started with you on this.
Okay, let me start at the beginning. A very good place to start. Water and sewer charges, we've covered this before, but it's a refresher. Basically, what you want to do with it is recover costs and then have a surplus to accumulate cash for big projects that come later on. So the operating costs include the cost of water from Great Lakes Water Authority, the cost of sewage and capital expenditures from Wautua, overhead for the water and sewer department, including things like billing, maintenance of lines, stuff like that. Second thing is to pay off debt and capital investments. There's always ongoing capital investments, and there was a significant amount of debt. That's misstated. There was debt that we've been paying down that we paid off this year that I'll get to in a minute. But you gotta, it's like anything else, you wanna save for longer term projects. As water mains age, it's about $1 million per half mile of water, average water mains. And there's a run rate that we build in there for sewer lining that are included sometimes in the SAW grants, and a maintenance of water tower life cycle. So those are the major elements that go into the model. So this year, the wholesale water from Great Lakes Water Authority increased by 6.2%. This is the former Detroit Water and Sewerage Department. So across the board, they promised, I think, like 2.3% or something like that, but there were a couple of communities that were outliers, and we were one of them, and I think we got the largest increase of any of the communities out there.
Is that because there was
It's because they
peak
hate
hour,
us.
peak day thing?
No, they hate us.
Because they don't like me.
Yeah, right.
I give them a hard time, though, so that's probably why.
I can comment as to why we had a higher wholesale rate increase than the other communities. GLWA, every 4 years, they open up the contracts and allow communities to negotiate the peak hour max day limits. If you recall, when they started this process, we were at max day, we had the lowest max peak hour, max day, while everyone else was way higher than us, just because we benefit from the elevated water towers and the pumps. Since that time...
And your good management of the system.
Of course, that's without saying, right? But that was like 10 years ago. So since that time, a lot of communities have actually put in elevated towers. And so every 4 years, you're going to get this, some are winners, some are losers. But because we started off low in the very beginning, all these other communities with new towers are now making the pie being distributed differently. So it seems like we're getting a rate increase. It's because those other communities are going lower. Now, having said that, I am aware of that certain communities have exceeded their peak hours this year in early June. So 4 years from now, there's going to be another fluctuation, and we may benefit from that. So that's why we received a 6% increase, while the other communities got somewhere in the ballpark of 3%.
So you'd say the system, for 50 years, the city of Detroit did not allow elevated water towers, very restrictive. So they've loosened up, and now the system is running more optimal versus what it used to be.
Well, it's because of methodology. They know how to play the game by installing elevated water towers and controlling their max hour peak day, which basically the methodology is.
But for a long time, the Detroit Water and Sewer did not want them or permit them.
Yeah, that's not what's
All right.
happening.
So the second point, Patrick, just stay up there if you want, is that there was some long-term debt that was bonds that were issued, I think it was in 2012, that were paid off this year, about 1.4 million per year we were paying towards that debt. We made the last payment on it in January of this year, so there's a recommendation associated with that.
That was a refinance of the original debt.
The 2009
Or it might have been before that even.
Yeah, that was before my time.
So we refinanced it.
And that was in 2012. So for 2023, the interest income will be at least 650K, and that's a little conservative. So we're having a good year, as we all know. GLWA is essentially projected a flat demand in our community for the next 2 years. Is essentially because we're built out. One of the things that makes these calculations not complicated, but just an extra iteration, is that the fiscal years between GLWA, Wautua, and Plymouth Township are not aligned. We all have different fiscal years. And that's just in the calculation, so if you see something odd in there, that's why. But as I'd mentioned, the goal is to recover the cost and accumulate a surplus. We have about 19 million in cash in the water and sewer fund, so it's very healthy. But as we've talked about before, the meters are approaching end of life, and any major project budgets that we need to do, water main replacement, stuff like that, will have to be budgeted separate. They're not baked into this budget. So the recommendations for this year are to eliminate the Wautua capital charges that appear on everybody's bill.
So are you going to have to give a refund for the first 6 months of this year for the people that have paid it?
We haven't talked about that. I don't know. We can discuss that.
That should be part of the budgeting process,
The second
right?
one is increase water and sewer rates by 2%. Make these rates effective 8/1/23 through 7/31/24, and that's a new cost per gallon of 1.083 cents. So these capital charges, this is what the chart looks like. The minimum is over in the right-hand column is $15.69 on a quarterly basis. That's the lowest people pay. On the board of trustees, without naming names, three of the trustees pay the $15.69, one pays $23.52, and three of us pay $39.21 per quarter. So if you're in that category, that's $160 a year savings, which offsets a good amount of the 2% increase, depending on your usage. So you can see here from this chart, for some folks that, that's, significant. The neighbors, Canton Township charges $7.44 for water and $3.18 for sewer, for a combined of $10.62. With our new recommendation, actually, I needed to change this slide. This is a little lower. Those are the current rates. Northville Township charges $11.27 combined, $6.33 and $4.94. Plymouth City is $14.80 combined. Northville City has two pricing structures. they have a dual pricing option. The water and sewer combined are 1581, but if you in Northville City, you can do a second meter that is only for irrigation, so you don't pay the sewage portion of it for water in your lawn. That's come up before in our discussions, and for a lot of reasons, there's not benefit to do that. The cost of installing a second meter kind of outweighs
Water
it.
bills are so high.
Yeah, yeah.
The house always wins.
Yeah, the house wins.
That's why their water rates are much higher.
And Livonia is cheaper, and we'll leave it there.
For now.
For now. So the GLWA rates are effective August 1st. The rates are based on a 60% fixed and 40% variable. So the fixed cost is $240,700 per month. That's what we pay regardless, irrespective of any usage, and the variable cost is $1.69 per 1,000 gallons. So the GLWA estimates that we'll use 1,213,164 gallons. The total cost is about $4.23 per 1,000 gallons from GLWA. So that's before we construct the model. Example of the bill, I think we went over this last year, but that Wautua line on here is the line that we would eliminate if the board agrees with the recommendation, and we'll stop collecting on that since the debt has been paid off. This is an eye chart. I apologize for this. It should have been in your packet, but this is the model that shows the cost, the sources of revenue, the operating expenses, the debt and capital, retirement of debt, depreciation and amortization, and would net us out with the 2% increase, would net us with about $2.3 million in surplus next year, which is about a little bit lower than we've ran in past years, but because we're healthy in terms of our cash position, it should be adequate. These are the historical rates. Going back to 17, back in 16, 17, we had that drop of 4.8%. And then there was a big jump. The 16, 17 rates that was based on a prior group of folks doing an election year reduction.
Yes, political game.
It was a political game, because the next year we had to raise rates 8%. But you can see that it is, to Patrick's credit, it's a really well-run team. It's a small team. We keep our costs down, and as a result of that, even though the cost of wholesale water has been rising, year over year, we're able to keep our water rates down below the rate of inflation because it's well managed, and we have the Wautua debt paid off. Wautua was before my time, but that in the long run, that turned out to be a really good decision for the township. So this shows our current assets and our net position. Net position is the value of the system. You can't sell your pipes, but if you could, this is what they would be worth, and it's just a book entry. So the net position has been increasing since 16, meaning the value of the system, and so has our cash position, with it being 19.8 million at the end of 22. At the end of 23, it should be in the 22 million range. So it's healthy. We're healthy. That was it for the presentation. So the recommendations are to eliminate the capital charges, increase the rates by 2%. Sorry about that. I'm trying to silence my phone here. And make that effective 8/1. I don't know. Do we want to go and refund? I mean, refunding could be a lot of work. I don't know that would be really
Well,
prudent.
I think we have probably a
That's
legal
a lot of
obligation,
work.
because it's shown as Wautua debt on the bill.
I understand that.
Well, we may need to,
But
we
it's
may need to
because the
study
fiscal
that.
years are not in alignment. But that doesn't make any, that would be really difficult.
How much do we pay Watua every year just going forward for capital improvement?
So the 150,000 is in their CIP.
Right.
So Watua right now is built out and the debt is paid off. And they don't have any major projects planned for the next several years, just really maintenance of the system. It's where it needs to be, it's modernized, it's managed well. It's running great.
Okay. Any other questions for Bob? Well, no, hold on, no. This is the board. The board has to ask questions.
So what are we going to, so I'm requesting that you and the finance person need to come back with a one-pager on the refund, whether that would give a recommendation based on what your data says you should do, based on labor and how much money is at stake. I don't know how much it is. At least some facts instead of just out of hand saying it's not a good idea. So come back with a one-pager. Do you agree to that?
I'll take a look at it, but I'll tell you, to go through 9,000 bills and have to put credits on them, we'll have to hire we'd have to hire staff to do that. You'd have to go to 9,000 bills and put credits on them.
But let's see what the implications are.
We're also paying Watua still forward
We're
every
still
year.
paying Watua. It's because the fiscal years are not in alignment.
Right, so you can align them.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea. I don't know whether it's $100,000.
It's actually 11,000 bills. It'd be going to 11,000 bills and putting credits on them.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, we've
One at a time.
We've cleared the air on that. So any other questions from the board?
I have a couple of questions. The leachate from the Arbor Hills, we were taking that into the Watua system. Are we still doing that?
Yes, there is a small amount of leachate. There is a pipe that goes from the Arbor Hills landfill
through the old DeHoco.
it goes into Northville Township. And then it goes through Northville Township, through us, through Canton, and it goes all the way down to the Yucca facility. However, I think that there will be a movement.
They're paying for it.
I would presume so, yeah. I mean,
it might be worth checking.
Okay, but
At one time, they weren't because we traded the composting with them. So we got free composting in exchange for allowing the leachate, but that's gone.
Yeah, and there will be, I'm confident that there will be an effort in the months ahead to possibly add all of the landfill to, and have it, all the leachate go into the system. That would be their desire. However, I believe that that would trigger the clause in the bylaws that would require that the three supervisor vote to allow that to happen, number one.
Even if it already is currently going, partially?
Well, no, because this is more. This would be the entire landfill. There's more, other leachate is gathered on site in ponds and is taken away.
They're hauling it away by
They're
trucks?
hauling it away. So as the landfill gets bigger, the amount of leachate continues to grow. And as the landfill decomposes more, the leachate grows. So, however, all that being said, what I've been told by the executive director of Watua is that the Yucca facility does not want to handle any more leachate because leachate contains chemicals and other deleterious items that cannot be processed and eliminated through the normal biological process, okay? There's chemicals in there.
So it's disruptive to their operation?
It's potentially, well, it's going to add more burden to the system that they cannot fix. And remember that Yucca is a tertiary system that ultimately discharges into
Rouge.
the Huron River and the Rouge, and both. So the lower Rouge and Huron. So
pump it back.
So anyway, we're both right. And again, that requires a higher standard than say Detroit Water and Sewer. At any rate, just keep that on your radar. We do monitor what's going on with the landfill. I give you all periodic updates from the anti-landfill people But remember, their goal is to close the landfill, and they're not interested in where the leachate goes. They want the landfill closed. And if that means more product into the Wautua system, I've been told by them that that is not their concern. They want to close the landfill. They don't care what happens to the leachate.
Yeah, but the global view is to minimize the amount of pollution in the environment.
Certainly, but that is not necessarily the primary goal of that particular group, where we do get very useful information from them. They do testing. They're very active, and they've been very helpful in a lot of our analysis. So, there you go.
All right, you ready for a motion?
Sure.
I move to approve Resolution 2023-07-25-57, effective August 1, 2023, to revise the Plymouth Township Comprehensive Fee Schedule to reflect a 2% water and sewer rate increase. The new water consumption rate will be $5.99 per 1,000 gallons, and the new sewer disposal use rate will be $4.94 per 1,000 gallons. And here, do I need to add in and further request the treasurer to investigate refund of Wautua debt, or do we have an honor system and we don't need to put that in?
I'm not going to speak for Bob, but I think that's something he said that he will look into. So
great, let's do it. Is that right, Bob?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, motion's been made by Trustee Kermy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Treasurer Dorchevitz. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heisey?
Yes.
Treasurer Dorchevitz?
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Trustee Buckley?
Yes.
Trustee Kermy?
Yes.
Trustee Monahan?
Yes.
Trustee Stewart?
Yes.
Motion
Okay,
carries.
perfect. Thank you, everybody. We're going to move back to public comment, again limited to 3 minutes. Mary Ann McLaren.
Good evening, Board. Mary Ann McLaren. I'm a resident of Plymouth Township and a member of the Environmental Leadership Commission. So I do appreciate your foresight to move forward with the solar panel ordinance that will help give people guidance on how to do that as we look for alternative, sustainable ways to provide electricity for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Dale Bernhardt, first I want to thank you all for listening to our comments about the racetrack. This is just observations that I've made over the years. I kind of watch the videos a lot. This microphone does not pick up well in the videos, and you'll lose half of the comments from people. You can hear this out here, and you guys can hear it, but when you play that video back, you won't get it. I ask you, please upgrade this microphone right
The
here.
technicians are coming in tomorrow.
Oh, very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. And the other question I have, it's very hard to get your comments across in 3 minutes. Now, I don't know if that's something that the board has said in the past, but is there an opportunity to give us a little bit more time, like 4 minutes? Because I'm telling you, it's hard to compress everything that you want to say in 3 minutes. I'd like you to consider that, please.
I know.
Thank you.
Kurt, the answer to that isn't
the open
the 3
meeting-
minutes the state minimum?
It's the state minimum on the Open Meetings Act, and it's also our board policy as well.
Yeah,
So-
we could change the policy, but we
Is
have
there a maximum? You said that's state minimum.
I don't know
By
what the
state law.
I don't know what the Kevin, do you know what
So
the
the
maximum?
minimum
there
is a maximum?
Well, Plymouth Township adopted long ago
Okay.
that used the state guideline, or state minimum.
Well,
which was 3
it's
minutes.
in the Open Meetings Act. It's
Yeah.
not, you know.
So we adopted.
State law.
To change it.
Well, we could.
Thank you.
Some boards do.
Okay.
I saw one board that had 3 minutes and 5 minutes. In the beginning, it was 3, and at the end, it was 5. I don't know why they did that.
You know, it gets late, and if you have a few people that want to speak, that's one thing, but we want to hear from everybody. And we had a short agenda beyond this, but if we had a longer agenda, we got to get through the business. And that's the reason. It's not that we don't want to hear the comments.
Like I said, a lot of us put a lot of work into
I know.
our research, and it's
You can also always submit written comments as well,
Yes.
and emails.
Yeah, you gave us a package and we accept that.
Yeah. Okay.
Stacy Romine, just a brief comment. Thank you very much with the solar, the SES.
Get a little bit closer.
Thank you very much with the SES for holding off on the residential ground mounted for the time being. I'm looking forward to hearing that analysis and seeing what goes forward for that. I know it's of interest to the public, but it's also of interest, I think, to the residents and property use and viewing for residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dorcas Smith again. This is probably for Bob. My question is, because you gave the new price per gallon, which is 1 cent, basically just over 1 cent a gallon. What was it this year?
It was less than that. I want to say it was 1 penny and 3 hundredths, but I don't know off the top
Okay,
of
so
my
it's
head.
still, but 2% is not a huge amount.
It's not.
Okay, so we're not really expecting much of an increase in our
No,
water
and
bill
plus,
this year.
partly it's going to be offset. You're going to save $160 a year from that meter or from that debt charge. So that's a partial offset, and it won't be a lot.
You'll see a big decrease, depending on the size of the meter.
Yes, but that's what I've noticed on our bill. It seemed this year, when we just got our most recent bill, that it actually dropped.
Not because anything we did.
You probably just watered less, maybe, or?
Well, we probably had a good year because we've had a lot of rain. All right, thank you.
I quit taking showers personally.
Yeah, we know, yeah. Anybody else before? Okay.
ISTL CO3, Texas Department of Criminal Justice. FMLA workers comp, medically separated. Anyway, I don't know the correct procedure.
Get the mic up to your face, please.
I don't know the correct procedure, but I possibly am asking for a emergency vote. Maybe a government employee as FMLA disabled, medically separated. The government employees waste a lot of money. They aren't required to be efficient. They don't care. They're getting paid regardless. So much taxpayers' monies are wasted due to inefficiency. There are stuff that happens in the city, the county, the state, the federal government that we are not told about. And I think accountability should be held in the government. Moreover, I was not in the good old boy club or the good old girl club because I had 3 years Navy ROTC, which my unit took first in DC Grand Nationals for Armed, Unarmed, Color Guard, PT for decades. Other officers didn't like working with me because I went by the rules. And there was a lot of wasted money because government employees are not efficient, nor are they held accountable. Additionally, I'm sure everyone in this room has contributed positively to society. Unfortunately, now everybody is taught selfish to be selfish. and somebody explain something to somebody, and only they can say, oh yeah, I made a mistake, I'm gonna change. So, I thought we were forgiving person,
I have brain freeze. What's his last name?
but
Holgate, yeah.
I was instructed certain things today.
Hey, Mr. Holgate, do you need a couple more minutes? Given your
Just temporarily, I was wondering if we could hold accountability, and I'm not sure if we can make an emergency vote to request that the Michigan Attorney General Civil Rights personnel come and audit numerous agencies to save y'all money, make things more efficient, because we're talking about animals, which I agree that's reasonable. But I think first we need to take care of human beings. Me, I feel that I'm being treated worse than a dog, and I'm sure there are other people in this room that are.
Okay, Todd, why don't we wrap it up? I appreciate your concerns.
I request
Thank you.
that we make an emergency vote to request the Michigan Attorney General Civil Rights Office.
So Todd, we've heard your concerns. I appreciate your service to, I believe it was the state of Texas, to our country, and we really appreciate and honor your service to our people. And my advice is, please get yourself an attorney or a legal representative to assist you in moving forward with things. It doesn't help to come to my office, and we've had this conversation before, but you really need to have somebody speaking and acting on your behalf and and to help you navigate through the process. And we have no, we're not mad at you or anything like that. I want to see you get the legal assistance that you need so that we can have a conversation with somebody who's looking out for you.
Are you a U.S. Navy veteran?
No, sir. ROTC, high school and Air Force, college.
Okay.
And then when the riot occurred, my Air Force captain said, you can't pass the physical, goodbye.
Yeah.
So we need some type of legal aid.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to,
representative. And the problem is, I have bad luck.
Well, Todd, we appreciate your concerns, and we've tried to give you some advice tonight, but we would like to wrap it up, okay? Can you have a seat now?
All I'm saying is this council can't make an emergency vote to request the Michigan Attorney General Civil Rights personnel to audit and make this community better. Because I know one thing, Plymouth Township is much better than Plymouth City.
Well, we appreciate that, and we agree with you on that one. So Thank you, Todd, very much. I appreciate you coming out tonight. Please have a seat, and we've tried to give you some advice tonight, and hopefully you'll take that to heart. You have a good day, buddy, okay? Hi.
This is you know my name, Mary Pine. This is something that I feel I have to address.
Closer to your face.
I'm sorry, pardon
Put
me?
it up closer to your face. The
Microphone.
Yeah, I broke my toe probably, so everything's hard. I'm going to bring, what?
No, sorry, I'm trying to gesture to the police chief.
Okay, sorry. I want to clarify something. There's been a big misunderstanding, and in the military, they would say, or at the Naval Academy, which I'm familiar with because my husband went there, they would say, square away. Now, my husband went to the Planning Commission and talked about the fact that they were sacrificial anodes, which is the bottom of the ship that's made to protect the ship itself because that gets destroyed. Now, he then said, in more common terms, and I was at the Naval Academy enough to know this, that they also refer to that as shit shields, not shit heads,
Called a shed head.
which was stated by someone, and please be polite to me. Please get it right. This is my husband. I love my husband very much. He stuck by me when I had a brain injury. He has a written copy of his speech, and I totally sympathize with that man because I was lucky enough to come out of my brain injury and be able to have this conversation with you. There is an honor system at the Naval Academy. There is an honor code at West Point. You need to develop some honor. You could have gone back to the tape and listened to the tape to see what was said, and I would appreciate the courtesy of paying attention to what people say. Thank you.
Okay.
No, there doesn't have to be an apology.
Knock it
There's
off.
just the fact that it was said. I've clarified what was
And
said.
you used a vulgar term twice to refer to the plan unit development. You called it a PUD twice. That's vulgar.
PUD?
What is it?
He called it a PUD. My husband.
It's a word it's a euphemism for the male appendage. You did it
Yeah,
twice.
Stop. Let me just
And
say
he's done
something.
it about 10 times.
Due to his being in the Navy and loading, whatever you shoot off a ship.
Dale's
cannons,
done it about 10
He has a
times.
hearing. He has a hearing.
It was
Hey,
funny the
Bob,
first time.
he has a
When
hearing
we were
problem.
12 years old, it was funny, but it's not funny, Bill.
The person who here was most incivil in many instances is you, Bob.
He has a
Bill,
hearing
it's not
problem.
funny to use vulgar words. It's not funny.
Okay, everybody, let's knock it off. Let's knock it off.
This is lame.
Please
This is
finish.
lame. This is lame. He also has a hearing problem. And sometimes, this is really, really inappropriate and
And it's
lame.
vulgar.
No, you're vulgar.
Okay, everybody.
Okay.
Time's up. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Use vulgar language, Bill.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay, man. Okay, buddy.
it's a PUD, not a PUD.
Okay.
Dale,
Okay.
it was funny the first time. It's not funny. It's 12-year-olds use that term.
We don't know that, because in our day, 12-year-olds didn't use
All right, it's vulgar.
Okay. Okay, everybody. All right. We'll take it outside later. Okay, anybody else? All right, very good. Time now for board comments. What goes on at West Point? I was interested in that one.
Duty,
I don't know.
honor, country.
Yeah, you would know that, wouldn't you?
I don't think she went there.
Excuse me,
Oh,
sir.
stop it,
No.
Chuck.
My husband is buried there,
Yeah,
so.
her husband's
I'm
buried there,
Very
okay.
familiar with it.
Knock it off.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, no, I was just thinking, I just wanted to thank everyone who came out and spoke. There's a lot of thought and work and effort that's going on behind the scenes, like you mentioned, Dale, the work that you've put in. And I just think it's a testament to, the civic duty that you hold near and dear, and I just think that's really amazing. I want to affirm that. I know that's been said quite a few times that we're not listening. I can tell you I have pages and pages of notes here to show you that I am listening. I've written your names down, every comment, and I just want to affirm you in that because it is very important to me. I am listening, And while we cannot affect any change at this very moment, I just want to affirm you and all your efforts that we are listening. Okay.
Let's see, how about Clerk Vorba? Ooh, I'm really getting some reverb here.
No, just wanted to again thank everybody for coming out. We are concerned with your concerns, and we do listen. And so thank everybody for coming up and speaking with us. We do appreciate it.
Okay, Trustee Monahan?
Sure, I'm going to echo the same sentiment, and even coming in here before today, thanked a few people. You know what, this is how democracy works. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate the hard work that you have done. And, you know, while, yes, there are things that we should know, there are things that we don't know. I'm not a know-it-all, so I appreciate being, you know, listening to everyone. I listened intently to everyone. From the array of how the horses are treated to the contamination that supposedly exists on this site, okay? We're here to serve you. You're absolutely right about that. We're also really better for it when you come to us and you let your opinions known. This was quick, okay? It was quick. That we didn't have a lot of time on this, all right? But we're all learning, okay, a lot together. And that's what a community does. They come together. And they come together for more common good, not to be argumentative. And I'm not saying anyone was here tonight. I'm just saying so that we can enlighten one another of our positions, because we're all citizens here. And by the way, I live in Rolling Oaks, so I'm right there. All right, I know what you're talking about. I've raised my children here for 23 years. So it's a community that's valuable to me too. And I just want you to know that your opinions are heard. I have come home and laid in bed and thought about it. I have prayed about it, just as someone suggested, because I think that starts, God is my beginning point in life. So I just want you to know you're heard, okay? And there's nothing we can do about it right now, and things may not be moving fast enough. I don't have control over that. But I want you to know you've been heard, and I thank you for that. I also want to address the issue with respect to the solar panels. I'm in favor of the ornament, listen to me. I'm in favor of the amendment. What I was not necessarily, what I wanted a little more information of is as it pertained to the ground mounting, so that if someone couldn't afford, I don't know what the cost of this is. So if it's too costly to put them on your roof and it's cheaper to put it on, you know, on a mounting, I think our citizens should have maybe that luxury to be able to figure that out for themselves. And, you know, some people can afford it, some people can't. And I don't know enough information about that to have said a yes. So I'm not anti-panel. I'm just wanting more information. Thank you.
Mr. Kermey?
I have a lot. The dates for August, I'm sorry, what?
No, nothing, go ahead.
The dates for August in the website show that we have a work session and a meeting. So we need to somebody needs to update that.
Yeah, I was going to cancel both of those meetings.
Yeah, so
in the
that'll
next
get
few
updated
minutes.
then on the website. The billboard lawsuit status, need an update, either do it in writing or maybe we have to have a closed session, but it's something, it's been cooking for a year and a half or 2 years.
I don't think we need to do a closed session, but I think Kevin, you're still working on that? Or is that MMRMA lawyers now?
It's MMRMA lawyers. I'm an attorney of record on the case, and the status is that the township filed a motion for summary disposition, which the judge initially denied, but she denied without prejudice. I believe she wanted to see my confidential attorney opinion letter that I drafted for the Zoning Board of Appeals before she was going to rule on the motion for summary disposition. I did receive permission from Supervisor Heisey to disclose that to the council, the lead counsel in the FOIA lawsuit. And I believe that the judge has, either today or a couple of days ago, has seen that in camera which means the judge is looking at that without any other people looking at it in her chambers. And
Okay.
I believe that she'll make a ruling soon.
There has been no federal lawsuit filed, though.
So it's not going to be a consent agreement?
No.
No.
This is a FOIA lawsuit.
It's a FOIA lawsuit in Wayne Circuit, so they have not filed a federal action yet.
So all we're doing is worrying about the FOIA details, not the actual structure of a
Correct.
consent agreement like we had
We
years
haven't
ago
even-
for the billboards.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about.
We're not even there yet. then.
We haven't even talked about that. We've got to let the process play itself out.
All right, so we're way back in the,
Yeah, process,
all right.
remember.
I was gonna say pack, but that is too horse
I was
track.
gonna say weeds, but I don't know.
Yeah. Ivywood School on Ridgewood, I realize that the
On Ridge.
state controls that.
Yeah, so,
But
go ahead.
on Ridge Road.
Yeah.
Does anybody know the status, or who do we go to see the status?
Right now, Ivywood Charter School has submitted site plans to the township. Those are public record, and Laura Haw has those in her office. They have to do a traffic study, and they do their own traffic study, just like everybody else. And they have to run that by the county people, and the county's very slow, as we know. So they're getting around to it.
The county has to approve their site
No,
drainage?
they're traffic.
Just traffic?
Patterns, yeah.
The rest is done through the state?
Really, under state law, there is no oversight. So public schools and charter schools are treated the same, and they do not need, we have no jurisdiction.
Our building inspectors don't even inspect their building?
No, and we don't do that for public schools either.
Right, okay. So they're still in the Wayne County traditional hold, indefinite hold?
Yeah, well, yeah, they're going through the process again, you know.
Fire station for Wilcox Road or Lake Point area. I'd like a written status of where that is.
You will get that. Chief and I toured the facility in Canton last week, and I'm actually on my to-do list. I have a memo that I haven't put pen to paper yet, but Chief and I are gonna work on that.
Who is in that working group?
Me and the chief.
That's all?
So far. I've talked to bond counsel as well, so that would be Steve Mann and his people.
All right, so if you need a new member, I'm interested. Status of the smart water meters. We received the quotes. I know they're being analyzed. A written on that, or at least who do I come in and see what we have?
Patrick and I are working with a consultant. We're going to do a presentation to the board probably in September, October.
What is the dollar range right now that you've seen of the quotes?
I'd rather not say publicly. It's not, because it's going to be a negotiation.
All right. So you're going to be putting that in the budget for 2024?
Not yet.
Not yet, all right. Community benefit agreement. When can we see that in public, or at the very least, some other method? Because that is pivotal to the horse track.
Well, absolutely. That's why I requested it in the first place. So a community benefit agreement, Kevin, I don't know if there's any stipulations under the Open Meetings Act that would allow us to do a closed session on that, as it is still an active contract negotiations that's going on right now. I don't know if that would be a legal opinion, perhaps, but we can talk about, I think legal opinion would be the only vehicle that I can see right now, but.
I'd agree with that.
But we can talk about that offline.
All right, I listened to the Planning Commission meeting, and at the end, there was a discussion about what appeared to be to reduce the length of the meeting and the number of repetitive comments. My message on that is I strongly discourage that. Things have worked well. The reason why we have a lot of action lately is there's been some controversy, but in the 90s, we used to go to midnight. I'm not telling you to do that, but I'm also discouraging you from trying to reduce the comments, even if they are boring, repetitive, stupid, whatever they are.
I think that was really not characterized correctly.
I heard it with my own ears before I came here.
Well, I was there.
I know, but.
And I was part of the conversation.
Right.
And what we were talking about was that there was no discussion about reducing public input. The question was that people can come back for a second time. And when you have a lengthy agenda and the rules of the planning commission are to end at 10 o'clock, you know, there are people here that are business people that have worked very hard and spent a lot of money and want their stuff reviewed before the planning commission. And if it's 3 hours of public comment, it's not fair to them. So it's totally mischaracterized to suggest that somebody doesn't want to hear what people have to say. But the habit of, you know, you come back for a second, a third, a fourth dip, doesn't really add to the conversation, especially because these people that, you know, they need to open their businesses and they're there before the planning commission and it hits 10 o'clock and you have public comment that lasts till 9:30 and you have to adjourn the meeting because there's too much there, because it's 10 o'clock.
Or you could go longer.
Well, I know, but it's 10 o'clock. I mean, I've always said no good decisions happen after 10 o'clock.
Well, during the economic boom in Plymouth Township of the 90s, they went till midnight regularly.
Right. So did our board of trustees back in
Right, exactly. So, but I would discourage you from spending money at McKenna like Nani offered of how to manage public meetings. We don't need that yet. I know you said that we need it here, but I don't think we need it yet.
I was joking.
I know, but the planning commission was interested in that, right?
To be fair to the planning commission, the June meeting in particular was pretty ugly, and we had people brought in here to specifically to yell and intimidate the planning commissioners, and I know that was for citizen volunteers that is not what they bargained for.
Yeah,
And it was an ugly meeting, and the people. I know who's responsible for it, and they know that I know. So there's nobody in here. You guys are okay.
Yeah,
and that was really.
I understand ugly meetings. When Northridge was coming in here, we had a lot of that too.
But
from around the metro.
you know, when it's the board of trustees, I mean, we're elected and it comes with the territory.
Right.
We have to take personal insults and attacks on our family. But to do that to the planning commission is unconscionable.
And doxing the chairman of the board
Yeah, that's
was
unconscionable.
totally ridiculous.
All right, well, let's see if we can find a balance. And
Right.
Okay.
But elected officials and even appointed people, it comes with the territory. If you're in a position where you're making decisions for the public, using public money or affecting people's lives, you've got to expect people to be interested and passionate.
And this is why it's so hard to get people on these commissions.
And that's why people don't volunteer.
They don't volunteer. That's exactly
Okay.
why.
Well,
All right. Any other questions?
Hold on, let me go through my list here. All right, for the next meeting is August 22nd.
Yes.
I'm requesting that you put the 1% tax collection fee on there so that we can discuss it and have a vote on whether to delete it. And then Bob and I, we can work together. We've done it. We've attempted to do it 2 years in a row. We tried to do it when Mark Clinton was here and things went away, whatever. And then last year, Bob was new. So now maybe we can look at it. Interest rates are better. I can come up with offsets. So I can help with that. All right, that's all I have to say. Well, thanks everybody for coming.
Okay, did I get to you yet?
No, I want to say some things.
Let's go to John Stewart next, and then they'll finish up with me. John, anything on your mind?
Sure. I can't begin to thank you enough and to allow me to speak. Almost 3 hours ago, I sat down here, and it's now 9:38, and it's the first chance I've had to speak. I want to thank all of you for coming. I truly mean that. That's democracy in action. On Monday night, August 21st, I have been informed that the concerned citizens will meet in the Plymouth Library, Sue Bondi, and they're going to be talking about the racetrack. We will not have anyone run that meeting who will roll over you. And I would hope that Mr. Zantot and Mr. Callahan would speak during the first half hour. I will not be there because I'll be at the Plymouth City Commission meeting. Last year, it was Mark and Patty Malcolm. This year, it's Beth Stewart, honored for community service. My wife for 44 years, 21 years at the museum, and 16 years as executive director of the Michigan Philharmonic. And I'm so sorry I haven't seen any of you there, other than Mary Ann McLaren. So let me end with a verse.
Where, at the
In
Philharmonic?
3 minutes.
Yes.
For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, of reason, and of love, and a sound mind. There isn't anything you can't figure out with what you've observed here tonight. Thank you so much, and good night.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, I have, I'm gonna take a few minutes. I think it would be appropriate at this time, and I know others have. So, my family was out of town this weekend, and I spent most of that time thinking about the horse track issue, and I wanted to kind of summarize some of that. So, my wife and I were married in 1998, and in 99, we bought our house in Plymouth Township before we had children. We bought a 4-bedroom house on the west side of the township, about 2 miles from where the track is going to go. Our kids came along in 2004 and 5. It's the only home that they've known. They were raised here, and now they're off to college and got a great education at Plymouth Canton schools. You know, like everyone on this board, we have very deep roots in this community. We've been a part of the fabric of the community for 20 years. My wife ran the PTA for several years, and we're just in the community, right? So when people come and speak and they say, "You're ruining my community," it borderlines on, you know, kind of insulting, because it's my community too. But when this issue first came to me, and as in my personal view on it was, I didn't think it was a big deal, and I didn't see the opposition coming. I did not see it coming, because for me personally, I'm not a gambler, but I don't like to tell other adults how to spend their money. I go to a casino maybe every couple of years, but because I know the house always wins, and it's no fun to me because I always lose. But if there were a horse track there, when this came along, and I said, yeah, that might be kind of fun to go to on a Friday night, but if Friday night rolls around and there's no track there, I'm not going to be sitting at home saying, I wish we had a horse track I could go gamble at. It's just something. So my wife Tammy and I went to, in June, we went out to Northville Downs on a Friday night because we wanted to see what it was like. And we stayed for 4 races. We bet $2, each of us bet $2 on a horse, and we ended up losing $2, and we left. And it was kind of fun. You know, she had done it once, like 25 years earlier, as part of a corporate outing. It was kind of fun. And we went to look for the degenerates that we were told would be there, and they didn't seem to be there that night. It was just kind of normal people. But again, it's not like I don't tell other adults how they can spend their money. I don't have any moral issue with gambling. I buy lottery tickets. I buy church raffle tickets. That's gambling. So anyway, but it's not about me. But I just wanted to explain that so you understood where I was coming from, because I think when I've been out there, I listen to every comment, and and I've been talking to my neighbors. I read all the emails. I respond to everybody who asks me a question. Dale, you know this. I responded to you. The only people I don't respond to are people that don't give their names or give initials or have fake names. I don't respond to them as a rule. But on Nextdoor, I responded to you every time you asked me a question. And I just didn't think it was a big deal. Neither did my wife. And I think there's an element of the community that feels that way. It would just sort of blend in. There's also a group in the community, I think, that are just sort of indifferent. They like me, or there's a group that wants this, but the people that want this are not nearly as passionate about wanting it as the people are that don't want it. Those that are opposed are really opposed. We hear it. And one of the things that really troubled me, Friday night, I thought about for, in front of the fire for 2 or 3 hours, was that when people, the owner of the property has their due process. They have their rights. They have their rights to build it. They have a right to come to apply for it. And every time something comes before the board of trustees or for the planning commission, it doesn't mean that those people support it. With the Meyer thing in June on the planning commission, it was an application and people came in, they were vicious to the planning commission because they said, because you're giving this person a day in court that they're legally entitled to, you must be behind this, and therefore, you're ruining my community. It just didn't make any sense. And what I'm asking the community, what I think the problem in this country right now is we can't stop shouting at each other. We can't have a conversation without shouting at each other, whether you're on the right or the left, and we gotta stop. For God's sakes, we gotta just have conversations and stop it, because it's not how you change government. Getting up and threatening, to throw somebody out of office doesn't change their mind. What it does is it forces you, when you're sitting up here, to dig your heels in, and that's not what I want. I ran for office in 2004, and when I ran for office, I went to see the matriarch of a very prominent political family that I know in the area, and she gave me 3 pieces of advice. The first was, know how much money you're going to need. Second was, know how many votes you're going to need. And the third is, figure out not what you're going to be, but who you're going to be. If you get elected to office, what you are is a trustee, but who are you? And be true to yourself. Because if you stand on somebody's porch and you're telling them what you think they want to hear, they're going to see right through you in a minute. And I've built my political career in 20 years and been proud of it on the fact that I listen to what the community has to say. And I've done that for 20 years, and I'm going to continue to do that. And it's had a profound impact on me. The question about a referendum, I spent about 2.5 hours this afternoon researching state law to see if that was legal, and there is no legal way you can do a referendum on a advisory issue like this in the state of Michigan. Townships is a form of government that have enumerated powers, and it's just not legal. And our lawyer's nodding. So anyway, long story short, like my colleagues have articulated, we're all deeply rooted in this community. We all care about this community. We live here. We've raised our families here. We own houses here. If property values decline, we get screwed too. If taxes go up, we get screwed too. We're part of the community, and let's stop yelling at each other and just talk. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let me just kind of brief everybody where we are right now with Northville Downs, and I want to respond in my own way to some of the questions, not all of them, because I think some of them have already been asked and answered in the past. 2 years ago, we had a discussion about a tree ordinance, and many of you in this room were also opposed to the tree ordinance at that time. You had lawn signs, you had websites, you had other things going on. You videoed us like Mr. Zantop is doing, which he has every right to do. Thank you, sir. We had during that time, we had a spirited discussion about property rights, right? And I think you were very passionate about that, Chuck. In this case, we have a property rights issue, and Northville Downs, whether we like them or not, bought this property fair and square from a company called Hillside Development. Hillside Development acquired this property when we lost this property in the Michigan Supreme Court back in, I don't know, 2015 or 2016. And many of us up here know that story, and I don't want to rehash that. Whether we like it or not, Northville Downs owns this property. It has never been owned by the MITC authority. The MITC does not own any property, okay? All the property along 5 Mile between Napier and Beck, which most of it, almost all of it at one time, was prison property. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, Mr. Vorva, you were a cop back then. People escaped from those prisons all the time, okay? And this was a nasty, ugly prison that was, part of it in the back was built on a landfill that was created by the city of Detroit many years ago. So I say that because right now, if I were to look on the Plymouth Township side of 5 Mile Road, going from west to east, I have a large parcel that is owned still by the city of Detroit. And that parcel has been approved by our planning commission through public process, public notice, public discourse. A building is going to go there that will be a warehousing operation, probably in the neighborhood of 350 to 400,000 square feet. It's one of the reasons why we want to do a solar ordinance, because if we're going to have all that rooftop, we should let them have the option to generate electricity there. Then we have the current site owned by Northville Downs. Then Crossing Ridge, we have a site at the corner that is for sale still. And then we have a larger site that was formerly owned by Adient, which was purchased by a investing firm out of, I believe, North Carolina. And they, as you drive out there right now, they're building another large warehousing facility, probably 350,000 square feet. They still have room to grow as well. I also want to remind everybody that none of these parcels were on the tax roll. We collected 0 taxes on there, and I believe we as elected officials have an obligation to maximize taxable value for our community so that we don't have to raise taxes. I think we also have an obligation to do our due diligence to see and ascertain if we can generate revenue from any business or entity that comes into the community. We don't always win that battle. We don't collect any tax revenue on Henry Ford Hospital, and it's a hospital too, I want to add that. We don't collect revenue on Henry Ford Hospital because state law doesn't allow that. We were in the tax tribunal. We took that all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court a couple years ago with USA Hockey because they wanted basically to operate tax-free. And we won that one. So we do collect taxes off of them. So we win some and we lose some. Further, as you go further east along 5 Mile, you have then the Dehoko prison itself. That is, of all the sites, it is the most contaminated. All due diligence has been done on all of these parcels. And I'm not going to rehash that whole thing again. It has been well stated by Dr. Harless, and also there is a journal, a newspaper out there that he was quoted, and I can't get the local news doesn't really exist the way it used to, and so we take what we can get. And then we have then the existing site, which is the Home Depot and the other stuff. Across the street on the Northville side, and I'll summarize this one more quickly, we have Northville Lumber coming in. I just found out today that Verita is coming in on the Northville side at the northwest corner of Ridge and 5. There is also tonight, the Northville Planning Commission, I believe, is meeting, and they are supposed to approve a 98-unit townhouse development at Ridge Road, just north of where Northville Downs is looking to locate. So, again, the private property, business decisions going through the proper procedural channels. And of course, we all know at the northwest corner of Beck and 5 is a hotel and other amenities, along with a lot of residential, and there's more residential coming. The plan is to build a large apartment building right further north on Beck Road. So the MITC was conceived in the 2010 timeframe. I was brought into the MITC in 2011 as your state representative, and I demolished the prison. We transferred the land to the Michigan Land Bank to the extent that we could, and proceeded to develop the site. I am very happy to announce again that we are getting $10 million from the state of Michigan to rebuild 5 Mile, widen it, strengthen it, to accommodate not Northville Downs, but to accommodate everybody else that's going to be using that corridor to generate jobs, tax revenue, and benefit for the communities. I'm a Republican. I served under Governor Rick Snyder for 6 years, and I remember when Michigan had a 15% unemployment rate, and we moved heaven and earth to get us down to the unemployment rate that we are at today, and I'm very proud of that. So I don't forget as a Republican that that job creation and economic development are critical to our state's success and to our local, our community success as well. A couple other things I just want to mention here. There's been comparisons made between this and Pinnacle. The Pinnacle racetrack was a thoroughbred track. This is harness racing. I think that's well understood now. The gentleman who created Pinnacle was a multimillionaire banker who, in my opinion, did not have the business wherewithal. I asked him, because Mr. Bernhard correctly pointed out, I was the environment director for Wayne County for 6.5 years. I ran the state's second largest environmental protection agency, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm the guy who made sure that Pinnacle complied with all of the environmental regulations, stormwater management, and flood control for the people of Huron Township. I'm not involved in economic development when I was at Wayne County. Had I been, I probably would have told this guy to rethink his business plan, because when I asked the developer of Pinnacle, what's your business plan? He said, people love horses. That was his business plan. So, I made sure he complied with environmental policy, but I wasn't there to advise him on business policy. A lot of discussion about gambling, like Bob and many others up here. I do not gamble. I don't get it. I don't like it. I don't go to casinos. But I can tell you, folks, the casino industry right now in Southeast Michigan is hurting because of this. And I can gamble on this thing all day long. I can bet on sports. I can bet on baseball. I can bet on all sorts of stuff. And so, if you don't like gambling, then this is really the thing that you should be concerned with.
I just realized I forgot to buy lottery tickets.
Yeah, and you can buy the lottery ticket too, which is all controlled by the state. So let's just make that clear. Northville, and I'm not here. Well, I'm going to get into that in a second. So, talked about that. $25 million to build Northville Downs new facility is what they are paying for. That there's no tax dollars involved with this. The tax revenue that is generated at the site goes to the MITC authority because it's a brownfield authority that covers the entire area. It's not a tax giveaway. It's not corporate welfare, and it's not some plot of some sort. The man who came up with brownfield, the brownfield law, was John Engler, and he was a good Republican, and he wanted to do that because we wanted to rehabilitate contaminated lands, put them back on the tax roll, create jobs and economic development, because that's what I believe in.
I was there.
And you were there. You probably voted for it, Jerry. Let's see. So let's back up again to property rights. Northville Downs owns this site. They came to us, and they have lawyers. They have a lawyer here, Mike Cox, former Attorney General, no slouch. They have another lawyer who's based in Buffalo, New York. And so we have Kevin Bennett, we have me, for what it's worth. And we have we've had a lot of discussions about the planned unit development. So what we are asking of them, we're saying to them, look, if you want to settle here, if you want to build a racetrack with all of the same stuff that you did up in Northville City, kind of like, here's a contract, here's our list of demands, here's what we expect that you do at that site. We're not arguing over gambling. We're not going to argue over the morality of what we're doing. This is a business transaction, and we have to obey the law on that. The law does not allow us to make moral decisions or religious decisions or personal decisions. We have to follow the law. So the planned unit development calls for a contract between the township and the developer. That process began back in January, February with the Planning Commission. I attended that meeting. I left shortly after, but I know it went on for at least 3 hours. Then the Planning Commission met again for another 3 hours. We've now had probably 4 hours worth of public comment. So to say that this is something that was under the table or behind closed doors or a secret deal is not accurate. We have followed the law in every step of the way. Proper notice has been put out there. We had a full house at all the Planning Commission meetings, so somebody certainly got the notice that there was something going on with Northville Downs. Planning Commission, again, voted unanimously twice for this project and referred it to us. I cannot get into all the details of the planned unit development negotiations because this is still attorney-client privileged. Our client,
You mean
Kevin's...
You don't mean the PUD, you mean
no, both.
the community?
No, both documents. The PUD
is set up by the Planning Commission.
PUD was set forth by the Planning Commission, but we have to provide the details, okay? We have to figure it all, we have to put the teeth to it, okay?
As far as the land use goes?
As far as the
The community benefit portion.
No, the PUD also has requirements on what we can do on the four corners of the land and what we expect of them. So we're talking about...
Oh, you mean for our recreational use?
Not necessarily. That's one element, but also public health and safety, lighting, hours of operation, noise control, traffic, all of those things are all taken into consideration with the PUD. Then I requested a community benefit agreement. PUDs are not unusual to Plymouth Township. I think we've had at least 30 since going back to the 1980s. Again, this is not some sneaky thing. St. John's Resort is a PUD. Henry Ford Hospital is a PUD.
The business park, Hillside, was a PUD.
Hillside was a PUD. So there's numerous other examples. Commercial, residential, industrial, and whatnot. So I had also requested a community benefit agreement, and though discussions over that are also ongoing as well, and that is done between myself, Kevin, Mike Cox, and then also the attorney I'm now involving the attorney from Buffalo. What I have noticed, and I think we can all see this with our eyes, is the PUD process takes a long time under normal conditions. The PUD for the so-called Elks Lodge project took months to work out. The PUD project for Henry Ford Hospital was originally approved by the former board in 2015, I believe. That was for a shopping facility that then morphed into a hospital. So that PUD had to be amended on the fly. Certainly with St. John's, we've seen the same thing. So on the what I've noticed though, and I think what we all are seeing is a lack of urgency maybe on their part, and I think that has a lot to do. And again, I'm not talking out of school. This is not attorney-client privileged. I can look with my own eyes. If I drive up to Northville City right now, they're still operational. I'm not seeing any shovel in the ground. I'm not seeing any condos being built. Northville City wants to build 450 condominium unit with with daylighting the Rouge River, a roundabout, a farmer's market, and they have no money for any of that. There's no money for a roundabout. There's no money to daylight the river. There's no money for they don't even have a site yet for a farmer's market. So am I saying, and common sense tells me that maybe Northville Downs may end up staying up there for a while. I don't know. They haven't told us that. So I'm just saying, we have to follow the law. We have to follow the process. And I know it's frustrating to not know everything that's going on, but to do that puts the township at risk from a legal standpoint. I'm trying to avoid litigation. I don't want to, and I'm not saying we're going to get sued, so don't misinterpret that. But we have to always be cautious of that. And, so we have to follow the rules. We have to follow due process. We have to make sure that they're getting their day, their day in court. And negotiations are ongoing, and we're doing this in a very methodical way. And I'm personally doing that so that we can, if this goes forward, that there will be a generous benefit to the people of Plymouth Township. And I think we're obligated to do that, to see if we can get the best deal possible, knowing all the liabilities that are abundantly known, and the potential benefits that are out there. But again, I know Plymouth Township politics can be very rough and tumble. I'm the poster child for that. I was taken off the ballot. I ran a write-in campaign. I won a write-in campaign against the entire Republican establishment in the state of Michigan from here to Washington, D.C., okay? So I know there's a lot of passion on this issue. My request is that everybody just take a deep breath and let the process play itself out. And we hear you, we understand the pros and cons, but let us take these issues back to the table so that we can see if we can work out a deal with Northville Downs and give them the due process that any developer, every developer deserves due process. We have to extend the same legal rights to this organization. All right, I'm going to cancel the August 1st study session and the regular meeting of August 8th. We talked about that earlier this year when we set our schedule. Some good news, we did get our first senior bus, the new senior vans that were generously, half of them were paid for with ARPA money, and the other half, one bus was partially paid for by the Pulte Family Trust, which owns St. John's Resort, and the other one was paid by a generous donor on behalf of Park, the Plymouth Recreation Facility. That's it. Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Stewart, seconded by Mr. Vorva. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.